אני מאמין אמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. בכל יום שיבוא. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. בכל יום שיבוא. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שהתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא. בכל יום שיבוא. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שיתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שיתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא. אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח, אני מאמין. ואף על פי שיתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא. ואף על פי שיתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא. בכל יום שיבוא.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Let's say a quick prayer so that we can hit the ground running. Father, we thank you for another time in your presence to study your Torah. We ask that you give us wisdom, knowledge, understanding, retentive memory. Give us the ability to learn so that we can teach ourselves first and then share what we have come to an understanding of to our friends, our family, our colleagues, and those that we run into. Give me the ability to speak carefully, to relay, to communicate what you've put into my spirit to your people. I'm just a vessel. You speak to your people. As we study Abraham, the father of our nation, this great man of Yah, we ask that we are able to glean from principles that he lived by, from concepts that made him to be chosen. May we glean from it so that we would also be able to live his legacy of being the chosen people. We thank you, Most High, because you're great. Thank you. Amen and amen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you again. I hope you enjoyed your week. Mine was packed, busy, but it slowed down getting to the end of the week, coming to the Shabbat. So I'm grateful for that. Just a little update before we hit the ground running. I've made some changes on the students, the premium site. I've started uploading the classes that I missed, the PowerPoint videos. I've started uploading them this morning. So when you go back there after class, you would notice some changes. You will notice two group of videos. One would say Abraham's journey. Let's see if I can bring it up. One will say Abraham's journey. The other one will say Adam to Noah. You will see all the past classes that we've done in Adam to Noah. We're going to start a new chapter or a new chapter today. Today's class going forward, you will see it under Abraham's journey. So when you go there, just to give you an idea what to look for. I'm going to post the two Passover video lectures under Abraham's journey so that you can download them. I'm going to make the PowerPoint for Adam to Noah. I'm going to make them downloadable so that you can download them, so you can archive them. See, when we're done with Abraham, I'll also go back and make those also downloadable so that you can download that also. So bear with me. I should be done with this by the end of today. So that's about it for the website. Before we hit the ground running, we're going to start a new chapter, a new book, The Life of Abraham, one of, if not our greatest patriarch. But before we do that, are there any questions, contributions, additions from our last sessions before we hit the ground running? So as usual, questions, contributions, additions, dialogue, anything anybody wants to mention before we begin. I'm not recording here. So just an FYI, we're doing a live feed on YouTube. This is our first live feed. Juliet brought up the idea that we should start today with a live feed. So we're doing that. It's not always going to be a live feed, just this class, so that we can give other people a taste of what we do on the Shabbat with our Shabbat classes. So we're going to put a very good behavior, I hope. Just kidding. Questions, contributions, additions before we hit the ground running.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat
Akwetey.
Shalom.
It's really I'm a little bit confused as to what striking a fire means, because if we use a stove or like a toaster versus like going to a park and striking a fire to make a barbecue, can you explain what that is? Are we not allowed to use like a stove or like a microwave on Shabbat?
Okay, can I answer that after?
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay, I would answer that after the class, or maybe I'll give you a call. Did you listen to our Shabbat lecture, the webinar yet? Okay, don't worry.
I can't remember.
You can't remember. Okay, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later. No problem.
Oh, okay, thanks.
No problem. You're welcome. I hope you guys have been on Taste of Text and you are listening to the videos. So if you have not had time to go on there, please try and do that. Those listening to us on YouTube, there is I think 8 or 10 seconds delay, so that you are aware. Is the 8 or 10 seconds delay. Okay. Awesome. So please, if you have not been on Taste of Text, please do that so that we can keep up with our studies. We put a lot of things on there that we don't do on the weekends on the Shabbat because we can only do one book at a time. But on there, we've started the book of Samuel, the book of Job, the book of Esther, the book of Genesis, and we're doing some things on family and relationships. And we're going to put something up too on the book of Ruth. So let's try and study as much as possible because we don't have the time that we think we have. So if you're on YouTube, you can share the live feed with your family and friends. Share, invite them to join us so we can talk about Abraham. Everybody needs to know about this great man of Yah and why he was chosen. Okay, if there are no further questions, let's hit the ground running. Let's make sure I'm recording this. Oh, I'll be in trouble with you guys. Let's make sure my Audacity, there we go. So we're in business. Abraham is a very important person when it comes to live Hebrew identity. He is not just the father of the nation, he's actually a force to be reckoned with. Anytime we mention or study about Abraham, we are faced with why the man was chosen. The text is quite silent about it. We are introduced to him as marrying Sarai, as going to starting a journey to go to Canaan with his father and Lot and his wife. And then the next verse, all we have is Yah calling out to him, Lek Leka. When we met Noah, we're introduced to Noah. We're given details that you would expect. That if you meet a character, a new character, you'd expect that certain things at least are supposed to be told to you about this individual, but we don't get that about Abraham. Well, that is necessarily not true. The Torah tells us a lot about Abraham. It's just that it starts with the Tower of Babel. And you know how the Torah tells its stories. It's always hiding stuff. Yeah, it's always hiding things in the details. And it's those who take their time, those who use the tools to read the text from certain lenses are able to get this hidden meaning from what the text is trying to portray. It's quite interesting that to talk about Abraham, the text starts with the Tower of Babel. What about the Torah, the Tower of Babel, tells us something unique about Abraham and why he was chosen? We're going to find out today. Let's hit the ground running. Let's start just reading through it. I will stop and explain further. I'll stop and sometimes change the interpretation so that we can stick as literal as possible to the Hebraic text. Genesis 11. Now the entire earth was of one language and uniform words. And it came to pass when they traveled from the east that they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. For the bricks were to them for stones, and the clay was to them for mortar. Let's pause here. This phrase, come, let us make bricks. If you translate it literally, it should read, come, let us break bricks. It was a little difficult to move it from the Hebrew into the English. So it said, come, let us make bricks. But if you look at the Hebrew, it should read, come, let us break bricks. Why would they say break bricks? Okay, let's look at, this is a picture of a brick. And it's Levanim. Why are bricks called Levanim? When you look at this Hebrew word, you can see in the word Lavan, which means white. Bricks are usually white, like we've said in the past. The Hebrew language describes or defines reality from within. No, it describes the thing. If you're able to look at the word, it tells you what the thing is describing is. So usually bricks start out white and then they're put into the kiln and then they are fired, they are burned and they turn into this color. That is why you can find the word white in Levanim, which are the bricks. So they start off white. That is why in the text they said, come, let us make bricks, or let us break bricks and fire them thoroughly. That is how you make it. So they start off white and then you put them in the kiln and then you fire them to get this color of brick. So the correct translation, which usually, as you know already, we stick close to the literal reading. Come, let us break bricks. And I'll just explain why they have to put it in the fire and burn it. Okay, let's go on. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly, so the bricks were to them for stones, and the clay was to them for mortar. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city or a tower with its top to the heavens, and let us make ourselves a name, lest we be scattered upon the face of the entire earth. And Yahweh descended to the city, to see the city, and the tower that the sons of man had built. And Yahweh said, lo, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is what they have commenced to do. Now will it not be withheld from them all that they have planned to do? Come, let us descend and confuse their language, so that one will not understand the language of his companion. And Yahweh scattered them from there upon the face of the entire earth, and they ceased building the city. Therefore he named it Babel, for there Yahweh confused the language of the entire earth, and from there Yahweh scattered them upon the face of the entire earth. Awesome narrative. But the problem is, this is a very short story. It is a grand total of only 9 verses. 9 verses only, which is a little troubling. And the reason why I say that is that 9 verses is not much time if this had been an event that had occurred last week. This is an event which, according to the text of the Bible, affected really all of human history, which is the advent of different languages, of different nations. Instead of one united mass of humanity, it all comes from here. This will be a banner headline in the New York Times. If something like this would have been recorded on Wikipedia, you would imagine pages of text on this. You would not have imagined just 9 verses. So as usual, the Torah is telling its story very, very briefly. It's just 9 verses, but in there's so much information and so much detail that is being given that you have to pause and really take time to see what the narrator is trying to tell us. So in such a brief story, you have to wonder if the Torah goes out of its way to include any little bits of detail that don't seem all that important. This is how you're going to find out what the text is trying to hide. Not hide per se, but hide so that you would ask questions and then get answers too. Are there any details that doesn't seem important that is recorded in this very brief 9 verses? What we're going to do is that we're also going to look at these 9 verses and see whether we can actually make them more brief. Are there things that we can take out ourselves and not affect the text? When we start doing that, you see that we start asking questions, and then the narrative is going to open up. Let's start doing that and see what we get. Now the entire earth was of one language and uniform words. And it came to pass when they traveled from the east that they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. So the bricks were to them for stones, and the clay was to them for mortar. Why are we told about the building materials? We've got the building materials, bricks that were thrown in the fire, and they used mortar instead of pitch. This is sort of the building list, the inventory from Home Depot. It doesn't really seem that important what the bricks were made out of and what the construction process was. Why does the Torah waste basically 1/9 of the story on telling me this stuff? What do I care about the building materials? They went to Home Depot, and so what? Why do you take it upon yourself to tell me this? We don't think it's necessary. If you told us they build a city, they build a tower, we would know what they build it with. Maybe wood, maybe stone, but why give me the list? Okay. Put that in your spirit. That is the first question. Why are the building materials important for us to know? The construction process, why is that important that we should know? Another question here is, what can you do to verses 3 and 4 to make it more brief, more concise? It starts, verses 3 starts, and they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. So the bricks were to them for stones, and the clay was to them for mortar. Verses 4 starts, and they said, is the same people talking. Nobody talked in the middle. It's just one people talking amongst themselves. So why the extra they said? So why can't you just take out one of these and they said? Remove the second and they said. Why repeat it? It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't change the narrative. If it's one speech, why break it into two speeches? Okay. So if I was to render it, if I was an editor editing what Moshe wrote, when it comes to verses 3 and 4, I will remove the and they said in verses 4 and then let the text flow. So it would read, and they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. So the bricks were to them for stones, and the clay was them for mortar. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower. I do not need the second and they said in verses 4. But the Torah left the double and they said there for a reason. It might be the key to understand the story. So let's put that in our spirit. Difficulty number 3. Come, let us make bricks and fire them thoroughly. And then verses 4. Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower. Which of these two declarations have to come first? Look at it carefully. If you look at these two declarations, 3 and 4, which ought to come first? Declaration number 1 is, let's make bricks, and the bricks serve for them as stone. Declaration number 2 is, let's make ourselves a city and a tower with the top to the heavens. What you have. Which makes more sense to come first? If I were the tower builders, first you have a plan what you want to do. Hey guys, let's make ourselves a tower. Then somebody will say, yeah, but what are we going to use in building it? What are we going to build it out of? You say, well, no problem. We'll make it out of bricks. That will be the normal way to do it. An architect doesn't go out and goes and finds materials and then comes and says, I'm going to build a house. No, you start off with the goal in mind. Let us build a tower. Awesome. Good idea. What are we going to build it out of? Glass? Wood? Bricks? Why is the process inverted here? They are talking about bricks first before they talk about a tower. It's as if the first plan is to make bricks, and then there's this plan to make a tower. That's kind of odd. That is something too that the Torah intentionally writes that way. It inverts the process. We have to find out why that is. Let's go on with the difficulties in the text. And it came to pass when they traveled from the east that they found a valley. What are they going to do in the valley? Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. The location of the tower seems odd. If you were building a great tower and you could choose anywhere to build it, where would you build it? I don't know about you, but I'll choose a hill. I mean, you could get a head start. You can start at 700 feet above sea level, and then you could really get closer to the heavens if that is your goal. It's strange that people actually do the opposite. Why start at the lowest place around if the purpose of the tower is to reach the heavens? You start on top of the highest mountain you can find. That gives you a head start. But rather, they go to the lowest part. They go to a valley. So that's another difficulty. Let's go on. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make ourselves a name, lest we be scattered upon the face of the entire earth. What is their motivation in building the tower? It actually seems pretty harmless. They want to make themselves a name. What does that mean? They said they don't want to scatter. All right. So we understand people don't want to scatter. We can compare it to nowadays. Nowadays, if you go to any large metropolitan area, everybody is worried about where the tax base is going to go to. We know about suburban sprawl and getting people back to repopulate the inner cities. So these people were the first city planners, let's say such. They were the first city planners and were concerned about that. Is that such a terrible thing? I don't think so. Besides, what did they want to do with this tower? They want to make something that they would be proud of. Let's make a name for ourselves. What's wrong with making a name for yourself? If you think about it nowadays, by the way, lots of people make names for themselves with towers. Libraries are named after people. Universities are named after people. If you go to skyscraper Manhattan, you'll find the Trump Tower. People make themselves, or people name themselves after towers. Why do they do that? Because they don't want their names to be removed from the stage. They do it because towers last a long time. They last longer than people do. So if you're looking for some way to kind of make it into immortality, putting your name on a building is a good thing to do. So it does not look like they're doing anything harmful. So what does Yahweh, what does Yah have against what they're doing? It seems so harmless. What is wrong with building the tower? Let's keep going on. Verse 6. And Yahweh said, lo, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is what they have commenced to do. Now will it not be withheld from them all that they have planned to do? Come, let us descend and confuse their language, so that one will not understand the language of his companion. What is the role of language here? If you notice, the story begins with language and ends with languages being mixed up. Verses 1 starts, now the entire earth was of one language and uniform words. And then this 9 verses ends with a mixed up of languages. Therefore, he named it Babel, for there Yahweh confused the languages. So it begins with language, it ends with language. the narrative of the Tower of Babel. What is the role of language here? Since the story begins with it and ends with it. Okay. Now, if you were Yeve and these people have embarked on a project and you want to stop the project, would you have used language to stop it? What about natural disaster, a tsunami, something, an earthquake? This is a strange way to stop a project by using language, and amazingly, it works. So what is going on here? What are all these questions that we ask going to tell us about this 9-verse narrative? Before we move on, are there any questions, observations, before we answer all these questions? Observations, questions, additions. Anything I might have missed? Any questions that you have on your own?
Oh, hi, Rabbi.
Yes, madam.
How are you?
I'm great. How you doing?
Good. I was looking at the mortar process in the whole scheme of things there, where he said to make bricks, we would need mortar, right? So they were saying that they're going to build this tower. First to begin, you build the tower, and then you figure out how you're going to build that tower and with what. Bricks come from something. It's not just going to materialize. So wouldn't the mortar come first? We make the bricks and fire up the bricks? Because it's a process, isn't it?
Correct, it is.
Yeah, so that's what I see. Like there's a beginning.
Correct.
And there's an end, and then we move on to when Yah comes in and he's going to do something about all this. What are they planning to do with that tower? So
correct. That's
just my thought.
That's a good observation. That's a very good observation. See, I mean, what we see here is that if we were given the opportunity to write these 9 verses, we would not have written it how Moshe wrote it. No, there's certain things, we would have rearranged them better, I think, so that it would make sense. But it seems that things are happening before other things that naturally come before certain things happen. You know, it's just 9 verses, but a lot of questions are embedded in there, and that is how it's going to actually give us the clue to what we're looking at. Very good observation. Someone asked here, who is the us? So the us could be a majestic plural. Usually when kings speak, they use the majestic plural us. Or you can also say that it's talking about Yah and his divine court. So very good question. So majestic plural or his divine court. Awesome. Good. So since we have asked all these questions now, let's answer these questions. What is really going on here for in the narrative? Awesome. So from the Industrial Revolution, a process has historically come into being and has accelerated through the computer age and digital age. What this has done is it's brought the world together, almost actually in this Babel-like state. The internet, as we know it, the internet itself has made it possible for people to collaborate in many ways between different parts of the world. The tower here, the Tower of Babel, was that of collaboration. Collaboration which is enabled not by the internet, but is enabled by, of all things, the people having one language, one way of seeing things. And they use that ability to collaborate. That is why Yah in verses 6 tells us, and they all have one language. That is what they are using to work together. That is what they are using to collaborate. So the enterprise of technology is fundamentally a communal enterprise. It's not an individual enterprise. One person can only do X, Y, and Z. It's really through different people doing different things and then working together as a community that you can get a Boeing 747, that you can get a jet from these thousands and thousands of different parts. Everybody is playing a role, and what is uniting them is seeing one thing from one perspective. So the story that we're reading here, we're reading a story of a grand collaboration. It's about the birth of technology. How does the birth of technology come about in this story? It is through the bricks. Come, let us break bricks and fire them thoroughly. It comes about in the bricks. The people don't want to use stones. Stones are a great way to build a tower. They are not interested in that. Stones are natural. They want to use pitch. They want to use cement, which they create themselves. This is why the building materials are so important here. Before this, they were using sand or sticks, trees, wood to build their cities. But now they've invented bricks. So they're going to use the bricks. That is why the tower doesn't come first. The bricks come first. That is why it's inverted. They don't want to use stones because it's natural. They don't want to use pitch because it's natural. They want to use something that they have just invented. And this is why the building materials are important. And this is why they build in their valley. They don't want a hill. The hill is already a head start, which nature gives them. They want to see what is it that they can do. Because it makes no sense if you're trying to reach the heavens that you start in a valley. But if they start on top of the mountain, that will not be a technological feat. That will not go into the books of architectural marvels. No, you had a head start. Why don't we build from the valley and let it reach to the heavens? So now we can understand, with their trend of thought, we can understand verses 3 and 4, why it's two speeches. The first, and they said, was to make bricks. Even though the same people are talking, it's two distinct speeches. It's two different ideas. It's two different plans. This is why it's repeated. Two different ideas, two different plans. The bricks is a plan in and of itself. The tower is a plan in and of itself. So they did not begin with the goal of building a tower. No. The first plan is actually just, let's break bricks. Let's make bricks. They're going to invent this new thing that they're going to be building their cities with. It wasn't even a tower. It was to make bricks. Let's throw them into the fire. And then, what do you know? We can use them instead of stones. It's the first discovery of these different implements that they are going to use. So now they've invented the bricks. They've been able to mold them and then put them into the kiln, into the fire, and they've burnt it, and now it's come out to something very durable. What are we going to do with the bricks? Well, we don't even know, but we can make bricks. And then the plan becomes a tower. That is why the tower does not get mentioned first, because that wasn't the goal. They had invented bricks. Now, what can we do with the bricks? We can build a city. Awesome. Now we can also build a tower. They don't seem to be doing anything wrong. This is just a process of technological development. What's the problem with that? Nothing. Well, on the surface, nothing. But let's continue the text. So now we're answering the questions. The reason why they started building the tower was not because that was the initial goal. The goal was to invent a different building material, and they were able to invent the bricks instead of using stones. Now, and after the brick, now they said, okay, now you know what? We can build a tower. What was the motivation for building the tower? And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make ourselves a name, lest we be scattered upon the face of the entire earth. Of course, they can't scatter. It makes a lot of sense. You can't be technologically inclined. You can embark on technology and then scatter. One person cannot build a jet. So, yes, we want to stay together. We're going to embark on this project. We're going to stay together and do it. So let's start this project that all hands will be on deck. No harm here. We don't think so. But what does it mean to make themselves a name? Are they saying the tower is going to become their name? That's a question that we have to answer. We are told Yahweh comes down, he notices what they are doing, and he has an issue with it. But which of these two reasons prompted Yahweh to visit them? Is it the desire not to scatter or making a name for themselves? We don't see anything wrong here at all, but Yah has a problem with it. He has a concern. So what is his concern? The desire not to scatter or the desire to make a name for themselves? This is what Yahweh said. Lo, they are one people, and they all have one language. Come, let us descend and confuse their language so that one will not understand the language of his companion. And the questions that we're still faced with is, what does it mean to make themselves a name? What's the problem with making yourself a name? And that association with technology. Why should changing their language be the best way to destroy the whole process? He used language, not an earthquake, not a tsunami, not a flood. He uses language. It means that language is going to play a very key role here. We have to understand the concept of language and what it really does. The whole nation was of one language and unified words. Not just one language, but unified perspective, a unified way of thinking about words. I repeat it, not just one language. When someone says we're not speaking the same language, meaning that you don't have the same perspective. Not just one language, but unified perspective, a unified way of thinking about words. Language is so critical, but sometimes we don't even think about that. Language is the lens through which we see life. Language is a lens through which we see life. So having a strong vocabulary is important because it helps you think. Whatever language you speak, your goal is to have a very strong vocabulary. Why is it important? Who cares whether you have a strong vocabulary or not? It's important because it helps you think. When I say good vocabulary, before we move on, I'm defining it as knowing regular words and knowing precisely how to use them. That is the essence of good vocabulary. Not knowing big words that nobody can pronounce. No, it's knowing regular words and knowing precisely how to use them. That's the essence of a good vocabulary. So using basic words that express different shades of meaning. What are you stuck with if you have a poor vocabulary and don't know how to use the words that are at your fingertips? You're stuck with not being able to express shades of meaning. This is very critical. You were stuck with not being able to express shades of meaning. You're stuck with black and white. And by default, you're going to take a simple-minded view to life because you don't have the words to express nuance. If you have the words to express nuance, you can think in a nuanced way. You can understand the nuances of reality because you can talk about them. If you don't have the words to talk about them, how could you possibly think about them? So language is so key to our development, so key to our understanding of the world, and we don't even understand this because we take language for granted. This is why it's so important to know other languages, like French, like Spanish, Hebrew, Chinese, to mention but a few. Why is it so important to know other languages? The very knowledge of French, Spanish, English, Hebrew, Chinese enriches you because the language is not just another language. They are not interchangeable. They have different characters built into the language. And it's another way to look at the world. This is what language does. It's another way to look at the world. That's why when we teach, we say we teach it from the Hebraic perspective, not from the Greek perspective, because these are two different languages. These are two different perspectives. These are two different worldviews. The Hebraic worldview is different from the Greek worldview, is different from the Chinese worldview or the Hispanic worldview. So language is not just words that we speak, but language actually affects our worldview. It affects our perspective. So a language, another language is another perspective. It's a whole other perspective on life. If you're bilingual, it means you can switch back and forth between perspectives. And there's no greater gift that you can have than being able to put on someone else's perspective or take off someone else's perspective and live in these two worlds and see things from those two perspectives. There's nothing as awesome as that. That's why I always ask people, are you reading the text from the Christian perspective? Because if you're doing that, you're speaking a different language. If you're reading it from a Hebraic perspective, you're speaking a different language completely. So language is just not speech. Language influences perspective. What if there's only one perspective? What if there's only one language? It means that there will only be one perspective. It's easy in that kind of world not to see the mystery of what it means to be human and to see ourselves as only what we can produce, only our creativity and nothing more. Their only perspective was to make a name for themselves. It was me, 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 me. It was just them, 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 them. They only had one perspective on life, one perspective on reality. That was Yahweh's concern. They were trying to build a legacy for them, for themselves, and no one else. Let us make a name for ourselves. Is that a good mission to embark on? Yahweh doesn't think so. So he comes down and he confuses their language. He confuses their perspective. He changes the perspective. Because we do need other perspectives. We cannot look at things from just our perspective. There is the Most High perspective on things also. So if it's just humans doing things because humans want to do it, only from their perspective, then we're in trouble. But if humans want to do something and they look at it from their perspective, but before they embark on it, they check what Yah's perspective is. What is Yah's language on this matter before they embark on it? That is a mission that you can write home about. Not just when it's your language and not Yah's language. Not just when it's your perspective and you haven't put the Torah's perspective into account. This is what Yah did not like about their mission, about their purpose, about the technological feat that they tried to embark on. It was the quest to preserve self, the quest to perpetuate self, the quest to preserve name, to preserve Shem. Yahweh says, because we've met this before in the Garden of Eden, those who've been with us from the beginning, Yahweh says, not this time. I'm not going to sit back to allow them to take the same route that their predecessors took. Not this time. So he comes down and then he messes up with their language. He messes up with their perspective. It was the quest, their personal quest for self, their personal quest to perpetuate self, their personal quest to perpetuate their name. He ever says no. Is it not interesting? Right after the tower ends, and we've just looked at their goal to preserve name, Shem, verses 10 starts. These are the generations of Shem. These are the generations of Shem. The people of the tower were trying to preserve their names. And Yah says no. And then he's going to talk to us about Abraham. But before he gets to Abraham, he gives us the context of what we're supposed to look at. The story is not about the Tower of Babel and the people. The story is about Abraham, but the text is giving us the lens through which we should look or examine Abraham through. You have an entire people trying to preserve their Shem, try to preserve their name. And Yah says, this is not how you do it. And then he's going to introduce us to a man called Abraham. But before that, he starts from Shem. These are the generations of Shem. And he gives us a long list of genealogy till we come to verses 26, where Abraham's father is mentioned, Terah. Before we start on Terah and Abraham, and then understand Abraham from the lens of what the people of the Tower of Babel were trying to achieve, I'll open the floor for questions, contributions before we move on. Questions, contributions before we move on? Mr. Donald says, so when Yah divided them into multiple languages, he did a good thing. Was this the case? Yes. So he did a good thing for dividing them into different languages. So we now have different perspective on things. So when we make a decision, we have to look at other perspectives also so that we can make a constructive decision. We cannot be self-centered. So it's a very good thing that the goal was not to change language so that they can speak Spanish. Yes, that's what happened. But the goal was the perspective, how we should see life. There's so many ways of looking at one thing. Yes, Brother Simon.
So the tower is being built, if I'm correct, because they wanted their name to be known like Yah's.
Correct. So they were making a name, just like Donald Trump will put his name on a tower or around the world, making a name. Correct.
Oh, okay.
Language is part of culture roots. Yes. So language is part of culture roots. If I'm on an airplane and I meet somebody who speaks French, it would tell me how to relate to this person. If I'm not very fluent in French, it would caution me not to attempt to speak their language because the French are very particular about their language. If you cannot speak it, they don't want you to speak it. If I meet somebody who is Togolese or Nigerian and I ask them, what language do you speak? And they tell me they speak Yoruba, I know how to relate to them. I know the kind of worldview that they see everything, or the lens that they see things through, just by the language that they speak, because language tells you a lot. So yes, language is part of cultural roots. That's why it's devastating when actually in an African home, when the children are born abroad and they can't speak the local dialects. That is one concern of that you find amongst the Africans. They have to. Awesome. So is there something wrong for making a name for yourself? We'll find out. We will find out very soon if there's something wrong with making a name for yourself and how you would define that. Awesome. So let's go on. So now we see what the tower builders were up to. They were making a name for themselves. Yah says no, not at all. He's going to introduce us to a man called Abraham. But he comes from the lineage of Shem. You would think that it's something that is made up, but he comes from the lineage of Shem. The same thing that the people of the Torah were trying to preserve. Their name. It's like, no, I give you a better story. I want you to examine this man. He comes from the generation of Shem, of names. And we're given all this genealogy, and then 26. And Terah lived 70 years, and he begat Nahor, and Haran. And then, besides everyone else, we get, and these are the generations of Terah. It means that we have a story. The Torah wants us to focus on Terah and his generation. And it gives us 6 verses to understand this man called Abraham. It gave us 9 verses to understand the context of the story when it started with the Tower of Babel. Now it's going to give us even less, 6 verses to understand this man Abraham and why he is chosen. And these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begot Lot. And Haran died during the lifetime of Terah, his father, in the land of his birth, in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took themselves wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Yisak, or Yiska. It's Yiska. Put that in your spirit. And Sarai was barren and had no child. And Terah took Abram his son and Lot the son of Haran his grandson, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, the wife of Abram his son. That's just repetition. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan, and they came as far as Haran and settled there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. All we have is 6 verses. If you're going to try and spend 6 verses introducing Abraham, why don't you tell us, number one, why he was chosen? At least put it there for us. Why do you give us mind-numbing genealogy that we can't really make heads or tails of? Why bother us with that? Just give it to us. This is Abraham like Noah. Noah was a man righteous in his generation. Noah walked with Yah. Noah had 3 sons. Give us something like that. But the text chooses not to. Why? Well, it tells us that. It tells us a lot. We just haven't paid attention to it. One concern here that unlocks our story is that a detail is given about Sarah that I think is not necessary. It's like they're infringing on Sarah's privacy. Let's read from 29. And Abram and Nahor took themselves wives. And the name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. And Sarai was barren. She had no child. Why do we care? Why tell us she's barren? You didn't tell us Milcah had children, or she was not barren. Why this detail? Why infringe on this woman's privacy? Do we all need to know she's barren? I mean, is this the right place to tell us that she's barren, even if you want to tell us? No. You tell us later. But it is put here because that's the key to understanding Abraham. Now let's read it as usual with our diagrams. These are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begat Lot. We hear about a grandchild, Lot. Why are we all of a sudden hearing about somebody in the next generation? Why do we care? Why is it critical? It's very critical. As we go on, we'll notice why Lot is mentioned here. But Lot is not the focus here. Okay. Terah has 3 sons, Abraham, Nahor, Haran. We are told that Haran had a son whose name was Lot. We are told that Haran died during the lifetime of Terah, his father, in the land of his birth, in Ur of the Chaldeans. Okay, let's follow Haran's genealogy. Does Haran have other children? We are made aware of Lot. Does he have other children? Yes, he does. 29. And Abram and Nahor took themselves wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. And we are told Milcah is the daughter of Haran. So it means that Haran doesn't have only Lot as a child. He has Milcah as a child. And the father of Milcah and the father of Yiska. Yiska is the same person as Sarai. We'll explain that next week. That's not my focus today. Just want to show you what is going on here, why the man was chosen, the man Abraham. So this is what we have. Terah has Abraham, Nahor, and Haran as his children. Okay. Haran has 3 kids. Lot, Milcah, Sarai. Sarai is the same person as Yiska. We'll focus on that next week. So you have to be here next week. Okay. What does the text tell us happened when Haran dies? Let's go on here. Abraham and Nahor took themselves wives. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife is Milcah. Now, this is a question. Why do you think that Abraham and Nahor went into action and took the daughters of Haran as wives? What did you think?
Her brother died.
Say that again.
Because of the death of her brother.
The death of their brother. Awesome. Tal says something else. Correct. Julia says something else. Correct. They took it to perpetuate the legacy of Haran. You following me? Awesome. It means that you remember from Genesis chapters 1 to chapters 11. It means you remember. Awesome. They are performing a custom that Moshe is going to give us later into the Torah. I'll explain the custom shortly, but one thing to note. Two people embark on a journey or a mission to do something, to perpetuate a dead brother's legacy. But when you read the Hebrew text, instead of the word being in plural, it's in singular. So it means that somebody took the initiative and then the other one followed. What we have here is Abraham is the one who went into action when Haran died. He went into action to marry a daughter of Haran so that he can perpetuate the legacy. He can perpetuate the name of his dead brother. Nahor saw that that was a good thing, so he also took action and married Milcah, the other daughter of the dead brother. Moshe gives us this instruction in a different form when the Torah is given. What does Moshe tell us? Deuteronomy 25. I'm going to read from verses 5. If brothers reside together and one of them dies having no son, the dead brother's wife, or the dead man's wife, shall not marry an outsider. Rather, her husband's brother shall be intimate with her, making her a wife for himself, thus performing the obligation of a husband's brother with her. So they're going to get together. Why are they going to get together? Verse 6. And it will be that the eldest brother who performs the Levirate marriage, what we call Yibum, if she can bear, that is the key phrase here. If this widow can have children, the surviving brother of this dead individual has to get with the widow if the widow can have children, so that they can have a child who will succeed, who will perpetuate the name of the deceased. What Moshe gave to us as Levirate marriage. This was practiced way before the Torah was given. That is why it's good to study history before the Torah. This did not come about because Yah said it to Moshe. No, it was something that our patriarchs were practicing. Okay, so Deuteronomy 25 tells us this. It's called the Levirate marriage, what we call Yibum. Judah had to do the same thing with his sons, and he refused to do it with his last son. That's why Tamar tricked him, so that he can perform that act of Levirate marriage before the text of the Torah is handed down to us. This was happening. Okay. Now, if you look at the details of the Levirate marriage, what we call Yibum, you only do it if the dead person doesn't have any sons. Awesome, Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin just typed what I just said. You do it when the dead person doesn't have any sons. Now, if that is the case, then what Abraham decided to do, marry Sarai, and what Nahor decided to do after Abraham had taken the initiative, marry Milcah, was necessarily not needed. But they did it anyway. Let's focus on Abraham because he took the initiative. He did it anyway to preserve the legacy, to preserve the name of a dead brother. What do you think is the problem that Abraham ran into or would run into? There was a clause in the command. Does anyone remember?
Well, the problem was that Sarai was actually barren. She couldn't have children.
Thank you.
So he didn't have to marry her.
Thank you. You see, Abraham did not know the woman is barren. Let me rephrase that. Abraham did not know that Yah had shut Sarah's womb because she wasn't barren. Because Sarah tells us that she knows she's not barren. She knows Yah has shut her womb. For whatever reason, as we go on, we'll find out. But Yah shuts her womb.
Brother Basil.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so there's a difference between being barren and God shutting her womb, right?
Correct. Barren means that you cannot have children.
So that means that she can have children. It's just at the point in time that God wants her to have children, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay. Please don't focus on Sarai being Yiska. That is not the topic now. Focus on the principle that we are talking about now. We'll talk about that later. No. Just focus on what Abraham is doing and why he was chosen. He did not have to perform this act, but he goes into action to perpetuate the name, the legacy of a dead brother. And the woman that he takes, Yah shuts her womb. Nahor, we know, started having children with Milcah back to back. But the person who takes the initiative that I want to perpetuate the legacy of a dead person, he is met with difficulty. Yah shuts the womb of Sarai. Put that in your spirit. We see how awesome this man is. Awesome. We take our hearts off for Abraham. It means that the goal that he started off on is not going to come to pass. But would he still continue? He started a good thing. I'm going to perpetuate the legacy of someone who's dead. And Yah puts a stumbling block in front of him. Is this a genuine act? Is he doing it out of emotions? Is he doing it to please someone, or he really wants to do this? We're going to find out. Sometimes we come to Yah and say we want to do things. And he's like, you sure you want to do this? Let's see if you stick to it, come what may. The people are building the tower for what purpose? To make a name for themselves. the narcissistic focus on their own name. Abraham and Nahor take mates to be selfless, to perpetuate someone else's legacy, not theirs. The Tower people are focused on their own name. Abraham and Nahor are not focused on their own name. They are focused on the name. All right, they are on the quest for a name, but it's not their own name. It is the name of their dead brother. It's the name of Haran that they're trying to salvage. Two different people, two different perspectives. One is looking out for self. The other is looking out for others. Yahweh sees for the first time men focused on name, but not their own name. The name of somebody else. The name of somebody who is vulnerable, who can't take care of his own legacy anymore. A selflessness, a giving of one's own name, a sacrifice of one's own name for the sake of someone else. Abraham was willing to sacrifice for the name of his dead brother. This is extremely amazing. He's going to put his legacy down. He's going to let his legacy go so he can perpetuate the name of a brother when he did not have to, according to the instructions we get in the Torah later. So Yahweh knew the same quality expressing itself in Abraham's relationship between him and his fellow man, which is his brother, will express itself in a relationship between himself and Abraham. He started with Adam. I want you to put yourself in Yah's shoes. He started with Adam. It did not work out. Cain and Abel, it did not work out. The people after the flood, before the flood, it did not work out. Chose Noah and his sons. We know what happened afterwards. He comes to these people who are building a tower. He cannot use them. Why? They are about their own legacy, their own ideas, their own mission. And he finds one man who would go all out for a dead brother and leave his legacy. One man who's not chasing about legacy, fame. Yahweh says, this is something I can work with. This is a man who will go all out for me to preserve my legacy, to preserve my name. This is why the Tower people are introduced to us first. Look at their motivation, and then look at the motivation of Abraham, and you will see why he was chosen. Abraham and Terah set out to try to take care of Lot, to try to take care of Yitzchak, Sarai. But Terah dies. Abraham can't have children with Sarai. And they are on their way to Canaan. But they don't get there. Instead, they settle somewhere else. The text is almost trying to tell us that he's going to give up. on the mission, on what he started, because it's difficult. When you start or you initiate something and then your brother joins and then your brother is having results and you are not. The reason why his brother will have results was because the idea did not come from him. He's just following what he saw Abraham do. But now Yah has to make sure this man that I want to work with, was his initiative genuine? How do you do that? You put stumbling blocks in his way. You do everything you can to give him the opportunity to quit and say, you know what, this is not working. I started this good thing. It's not going to pan out. Let me think about my legacy now. But this man does not. Abraham, Yahweh, comes to him. You embarked on a journey. You're going to Canaan. Keep on going. Don't stop at Haran. Keep on going. It's a good idea. Keep on going to Canaan. What's the temptation of the Tower of Babel? What was their temptation? To focus upon their own name. What's the temptation of Abraham? Abraham and Tarek, they set out to try to take care of Lot, Sarai, and Tarek dies. And Abraham is left alone with Lot and a wife who cannot give birth. And they come and then they settle in Haran. What's Abraham's temptation? The temptation is to say, I tried. Look, I tried, but she can't have children. It's time to focus on my own legacy now. That is going to be the battle for Abraham. Do you focus on your own legacy or do you keep your eyes on the ball? I'm trying to salvage the legacy of my dead brother. It's a heroic quest to somehow surmount over tragedy and somehow be able to see it through. Will he keep his eyes on the ball? And the man does. He never for once thought to stop because the wife was barren. No. This is what Yah sees about this man. And then in Genesis 12, he comes and he says, Lek Leka. Abraham, Lek Leka. Go for yourself. Go to yourself. It was a good idea you had. It was a heroic, historic idea that you had. You were the first man to be able to do this, to overcome the narcissistic obsession with your own creativity, to sacrifice that impulse so that your legacy is not your own, to selflessly give all for the legacy of others. That's what it's all about. Keep on going to Canaan, Abraham. Lek Leka. Keep on going. Abraham does. He sticks with Sarai over and over, childless, and he sticks with Yahweh. What does Yahweh tell him afterwards? Yahweh tells him, you can do it. And you know what? I'm going to make you a great nation. This is the whole point. What you're doing, it's a spark. Kindle that spark. Make a family dedicated to this ideal. Make a nation dedicated to this idea. That is why we are called chosen. Like I always said, not to wear zizit and throw it around in people's faces. When we say we're Israel, the essence of being a child of Abraham, what you're doing is a spark. Kindle that spark. to go all out for the legacy of someone else. Make a family dedicated to this ideal. Make a nation dedicated to this, your idea, Abraham. Until now, I could have focused upon all of mankind, but now after the tower, mankind is shattered. All different nations, all different families. I'll start with one family. I'll start with you, Abraham. I'll build that up. People will learn from you. Through you, people will find blessing. All of the families of the earth will find blessing. I need someone to start with. I will start with you because I trust you. Because what you did for a dead human, you would do for Yah. Keep on going. But this time, Lekleka, go for yourself. You started it for Haran. You started it for a dead brother. Let's change the mission. Go for yourself. Go for your benefit. Lekleka. I would aggrandize your name. I will aggrandize your name. You did not have to do this because your brother already had a son. But you're a selfless person. You embarked on a mission that was not necessary and you stuck to it. Now, if I give you a mission, a divine mission that is very necessary, I know you'll give it your all. So go. Keep on going. But there's something dangerous. There's something dangerous in this quest. In order for you to succeed, Abraham, you've got to become a nation. That is the goal. Becoming a nation means a great name. So this day we mention his name. But what's the great challenge of a great name? Not to become narcissistically focused on it. It says, I'll make you into a great nation and I'll aggrandize your name. That is dangerous as humans when we hear this. Is that going to boost his ego? Would that mess up his mind? Because the lurking shadow of the Tower of Babel is always there. It's a force that needs to be fought. Even though the land, this man is awesome. Even though the land was promised to his descendants, when Sarai died and he wanted to bury her, he had to go negotiate to buy a piece of the plot from a land that was promised him. He could have said, yeah, I promised it to me, so forget you. No. The promise was your children will inherit this. It's not his yet. He didn't go based on his ego, what Yah said. No. That was the challenge. That was what would have been dangerous. That was what Lot did not understand before he left to Sodom and Gomorrah. So in order for Abraham to succeed, he needs to be a nation. Becoming a nation means a great name. And there is a challenge. Yah says in the beginning of chapters 12, Lekleka, I will make your name great. Those are scary words after the tower. But Abraham is the best shot. Abraham, who began the quest to selflessly dedicate his legacy to his dead brother, may be him I contrast with a great name. But the lurking shadow of the Tower of Babel is always there. It's the force that needs to be fought. the temptation to somehow get sidetracked, the temptation to focus narcissistically upon your own creative power. That has to be uprooted. It has to be dealt with. Abraham has to keep on going to Canaan. This will be the challenge. Can he keep his eyes on the ball? Can he become a great nation, but not become obsessed with becoming a great nation? Can he become a great nation and not think that this name is his own? Once you think about that, you become so and so. You become nobody. So you can only be great. You can only be a great name if you're willing to sacrifice your name for others who are less fortunate than you. That is the challenge of Abraham. Can he do it? Can he succeed? To be able to keep your eyes on the ball, to understand that your legacy is not just your own legacy, that it's more than that, that you live for a mission, that creativity allows you to fulfill a mission in the world. It is not just the blind end in and of itself. This is the central greatness, and at the same time, the central challenge for Abraham. Can he do it? Can he succeed? This is a challenge that we'll explore further in the next 3 months when we begin to go into the life of Abraham into details. This is why he was chosen. Yah knew he could work with him. A selfless person who will go all out, who will sacrifice for the assignment of someone else, for the name, for the legacy of someone else. Yah says, I can work with him. Does he succeed? We've got 3 months to find out. Any questions, any contributions, any additions before we close?
Hi, this is Marie.
Madam Marie.
Hi. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I noticed in the story of the tower and with Abraham. First, Abraham sets out to perpetuate his brother's legacy. So from Abraham's perspective, we as Israelites would be considered Aaron's legacy. But Yahweh steps in and changes the paradigm and switches it back to Abraham because of his selflessness. That's one observation.
Yes.
That I noticed. And so when I go back to the tower, the question I asked myself was, what difference would it have made since they all spoke the same language, making a name for themselves, right?
Yes.
So, well, when Yahweh messed with their language, he accomplished the name for themselves, but not in the way they intended. So now everyone in the world have a different story or a different perspective on the tower. So in essence, they did make a name for themselves, but not the way they intended to, because Yah stepped in.
Correct.
And that's what I'm saying. He steps into both of the scenarios.
Correct.
And changes everything.
Correct. Yes. So there's a benefit to what he did, even though it did not meet his ultimate goal. So he goes and chooses Abraham. But yes.
Right. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
Rabbi, so I'm a little bit confused now. My little daughter's on my lap at the same time trying to talk.
No problem.
So I'm a little bit all over the place. There's something, it's Cynthia here, by the way. I'm sure you probably know that right
Yes.
now. But basically, there was something that was read. It says that if you have, you said that in the text it says if you have a brother that resides.
Yes.
Is that in reference to you have a brother that lives with you? So if your brother doesn't reside with you, then does that mean that it doesn't apply, that you should be following that process?
Correct. So the person has to be, let's say, in the same community with you. If the person doesn't reside with you, then you're not bound by that. The person has to be residing with you. So meaning you have to have a relationship with this person. It's not somebody that you head off, oh, this could have been my brother, or this was my brother somewhere that you don't know of. But this is somebody that you know of or you know about.
Okay, so is it somebody that you have to have a relationship with, or
Correct.
say if you have a brother? So, for example, if you lived in Switzerland and this other person lived in the UK,
Yes.
and they were your brother, and
Yes.
that happened. You knew about them, but you weren't that close to them. You still have to follow that process.
No, so there has to be a relationship first, because you're not just popping out babies. No, you're doing it because of the relationship that you had with your brother, that you want to perpetuate his legacy. No, but you're given an option. You don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, there is a custom that you have to perform. So it's not written in stone that you have to. It is those who are very selfless that actually go with it. And it's still done today on the coast of West Africa, actually. Well, yeah, you know that already.
Does the same rule apply to the women? For example, if you had a sister and the sister's husband, so if there was a brother and sister, the sister got married and the husband died, then would the brother take on the whole looking after the sister and the kids and things?
No, it's just them, the male. So the sister, no, not the other way around. It's just yes, a man who does not have a son, because usually the ladies would take on the name of their husband. You know, it's the son that keeps the last name going, you know, the legacy going. So if a man doesn't have a son, it means that if he only has daughters, the daughters will get married and take the last name of their husband. You know, that is why we came about with the compound name. You would have a lady keep her maiden name hyphen the husband's name, in an attempt to perpetuate the legacy or the name of a father that passed who did not have a son. But now we just do it without any meaning. But in the past, that will be the solution for the second question or the second scenario that you just mentioned.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Rabbi. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. It's Rochelle here. I have a few comments, questions.
Yes.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Cynthia was saying, I actually have an aunt who passed away, and her husband married her sister, my other aunt. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They had 7 children. So my aunt passed away when she was still a young bride. She was only 2 months into the marriage, and she passed away. And then my aunt's husband married her sister, but they're considered cousin sister. I don't know if that concept exists in West Africa. But anyway, that was just a tangent there.
Yes.
I do have a question/comment. I still don't understand the Yibum or the Levirate law.
Yes.
Because here Abraham marries Sarai, who is actually his half sister, as we know when they go in Egypt and Abimelech.
Yes.
And he says, so. First of all, the whole concept of the Yibum, I understand that you marry the wife of your deceased brother. Correct. If they don't have a son to perpetuate. So he just did it. Was it to protect his niece, or because this law only applies if if you don't have if the deceased brother does not have a son. So what was his motive beside the fact that Sarai was a really hot chick? But
Yes.
that is just another throw in the mix. So
Correct.
And then he would marry the wife, not the daughter.
Correct.
So,
Correct. Yes. So like I was saying, some of these practices were being practiced before the Torah was given. So that the instruction that we have in our Torah may be a refined version of what was being practiced before then. Okay. So
Gotcha.
someone can argue that, okay, this was what was practiced before then, but the command that we got in that Torah is a refined version of a custom that was being done in Abraham's time. Because you notice anything that the patriarchs did that spoke very well, we have it repeated in the Torah that was given to us at Sinai. Certain things that they did that did not go so well, we are told to repeat them, but then do it differently. This is how we got some of the instructions, some of the laws, correct. So based on the instructions that we got from Sinai, he did not have to do that because there was a living son that will perpetuate the name of the dead person. But he goes into action and he does that. Maybe it could be that in his time, in the community that he belonged to, remember, Abraham became a Hebrew. He was not a Hebrew. He became a Hebrew. So maybe in his community at that time, they performed the same custom of what we call Yibum, but maybe in a different context and different rules.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that clarification. The other question was on Genesis 10, when we talk about the Tower of Babel, and yet we know that Nimrod, who is a descendant of Cush, i.e. a descendant of Shem. I thought that, I thought he was, sorry, of Ham. Right, Ham is correct. So, what's the question?
So he was supposed to be building the Tower of Babel. And how is he under Shem if he was under Ham before? It's so confusing.
No, the Tower of Babel, we're not told who built it. They didn't tell us whether it was Japheth, Shem, or Ham.
But it says in Genesis 10, it says, Cush begot Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one on the earth. Okay. He was a mighty hunter before Yah.
Okay.
In the beginning of his kingdom was Babel.
Yeah, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel.
Correct.
Does that?
But he's not under Shem.
No, I'm trying to understand, why does it matter if he's under Shem or not? I'm trying to understand that conclusion.
Because you were talking about under Shem. You were talking about the people there were under Shem.
Oh, no. Maybe, let me clarify. No, I'm not saying the people that we've talked about, the Tower of Babel, were under Shem. No, I'm just saying that after their mission was messed up by Yah, we are introduced to Shem and his lineage so that we can be introduced to Abraham. I'm not saying that all the people who were doing that were under Shem. No.
Okay.
Yes, I was just saying that we're going to be introduced to Abraham.
Yeah.
But we are not introduced to him from verses 1. We are told about a narrative about people building a tower. And those people, what they were chasing was Shem, name. That's what it means. They were looking for their identity. And I said, is it not ironic that after their mission was destroyed, now the text chooses to focus on Shem and his genealogy, because it was through that genealogy that we get Abraham. So I'm not saying what tribe or what family the people came out of. That wasn't my focus at all.
But they are descendants of Shem, though, right?
Who?
The people who built the Tower of Babel because of Nimrod. No?
Yes, we can say that. I have to go back and check, understand the question, and then your train of thought. But yes.
I mean, the Tower of Babel, I mean, it says that in the beginning of his kingdom, meaning Nimrod, was Babel. So maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but I'm assuming that Nimrod was part of the people that built the Tower of Babel. And therefore, since we know that Nimrod is a descendant of Cush, i.e. Shem, right? So I guess we were just a bit confused. Yeah, Ham.
Sorry.
Ham, sorry, right. Okay, anyway, that's fine. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Give me 1 second. Let me bring out this verse and show you something. Okay, so your train of thought is the people of Shem spoke Hebrew, right?
Right.
So it means that coming from your train of thought, when the languages were separated, were different languages, and then different nations started speaking languages, are we saying that from Shem, now we have the branch of different languages and different nations?
Can you go maybe a few slides back?
Verses. Let's go up here. I think we get it better here. There we go.
You had named Shem. There was another slide that just had.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Let's go up. Here.
Brother, she's talking about the part where you start the genealogy of Shem. Well, that's it.
Okay.
So yeah, so go. I think it's the one before that. It just had Shem. Yes. Aha.
Okay. So what's the question? I'm trying to understand the question.
Okay, so here you said the goal was to preserve the name Shem, and yet we know that
No. Okay. So the goal was to preserve their name. Name in Hebrew is Shem. That's where you have Shemot. So I'm not saying they're trying to preserve the lineage of Shem. No. They're trying to preserve their name.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's why I was getting confused. Okay, I understand now. No, they're trying to preserve their name. Shem. Okay. That's what it means. Correct.
Okay, great. And I'm thinking next week you will unravel the mystery of
Yiska and Sarai.
Sarai being the half sister, because it's not just a niece, it's a half sister. All right, thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.
Rabbi Akwetey?
Yes, Madam Tao.
I have a bit of a difficulty.
Say it again, sorry.
I do have a bit of a difficulty.
Okay.
Haran died.
Yes.
Then what? Sarah / Yiska, Milcah and Lot have been adopted by Terah, and that way Abraham was not wrong in saying that Sarah was his sister, because his own father would have adopted her in the interim until she reached marriageable age.
Yes. So what he said that Sarah was his sister was necessarily not a lie. She was really a sister.
And the other difficulty is that Abraham married his niece.
Yes.
Would this relationship have been outlawed? Those relationships would have been outlawed later at Sinai, as well, and even the relationship that Moshe was born from, because technically Amram was the nephew of his mother, Yocheved.
Correct. So true. So when we take, we have to be very thank you for that question. When we take the Torah that was given to us as Sinai, a lot of things changed. Our patriarchs were not living under the same rules that we were told to live under. So some of the rules that they lived under, some of the things were permissible. It was not made permissible to us. So certain things that we will frown upon by looking at the text, we see our patriarchs doing it. It doesn't mean that they were wrong. No. Maybe their Torah, into parentheses, the instructions that Yah deals with them on is different from what was given to us or what was revealed to us at Sinai. We see certain things that they did come into the instructions given to us. And we see certain things that they did that does not come, or we see a refinement of it. So that's what's going on here. That's why it's called the Torah of Moshe, not the Torah of Abraham. The Torah of Moshe, what was revealed to Moshe to give to Abraham's children. It wasn't the same rules that were given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Okay. And I wanted to raise this issue because there is a group out there called the Noahites.
Okay.
They're targeting quote unquote non-Jews, and they say that it's okay, basically, for an uncle to marry a niece, because their interpretation is that Sinai was not for non-Jews, and this, I think people need to be very careful because they're targeting everybody who's not Jewish into thinking that such a relationship is okay when it's really not. And could Abraham, I'm just trying to put two and two together, could Abraham have been chosen because maybe his ancestor Shem and his family did not participate in the building of the Tower of Babel? Because from other sources, I gather that Shem was a priest.
Correct. Yes, he was.
And was Abraham chosen also because of the merit of his ancestor Shem and his descendants who decided not to participate in the building of the Tower of Babel as well?
Because you mentioned or asked this question, I would answer this question and say this. I didn't say it when we talked about Noah.
Okay.
The question that you asked is very important, and I think that was one of the reasons why Abraham was also chosen. When we are told that Noah was naked in his tent, and we're told that Shem and Japheth took a cloth and went to cover their father's nakedness, the same thing happens. Two people act, but the verb used there is singular. It means that one person acted and the other person joined. The person who took the initiative to cover the father was Shem. And then Japheth joined also. So you have a generation, or Shem's generation. Shem tried to cover the nakedness of his father. Okay. When his father woke up, a curse was pronounced. Somebody's lineage was marred. Somebody's legacy was marred. That was Ham through Canaan. And they couldn't do anything about that. Okay. But then you have in his own lineage another person, Abraham, also show up. And he also makes a move that is very selfless. And then from that, we have a nation come. Okay. So it's like Abraham is reliving, it's like a replay of what Shem did with his father Noah. Now Abraham is doing it this time for a brother. Can you hear me? Someone
Yes.
says no. Okay. Someone said no sound. Yeah. So it's the same thing. And then if you look, you have Terah, who has 3 sons, correct? The same thing. Noah had 3 sons. When Noah's generation, his sons were mentioned, somebody in the next generation is mentioned, which is Canaan. The same here. Terah is mentioned, his 3 sons are mentioned, and then Lot, somebody in the next generation, is mentioned. So you have a duplicate. You have like a replay of what took place with Noah taking place again with Abraham. The first time that this happened, Shem was able to cover the nakedness. He was able to save a father's legacy, his Shem, his name, however we want to interpret that. But he was not able to help his brother because a curse was pronounced. But this time, you see brothers helping each other. The first time you see a son helping a father. But this replay, you see a brother helping another brother. So it's like a duplicate. It's like the Torah is telling us the narrative all over again, but this time the result is going to be different. It's like we're reliving the past and it's being fixed. And Abraham is going to try and fix what Shem could not do when it happened during his time. So you're very right. You're very right. You're welcome. Very good observation. Yes, Madam Ajua.
How are you?
I'm good.
Concerning what our sister was talking about marrying of sisters and nieces.
Yes.
Could it be that the reason why Moshe's Torah didn't encourage that is because they saw the damage it could cause? Could Sarah's inability to have children even have something to do with that close relationship? Because history teaches us that close intermarriages result in all sorts of problems,
correct,
including infertility
sure,
and bringing out of bad genes, sicknesses, and all sorts of problems. So the purpose of marrying a sister was to keep the family together, but they discovered that it was causing more problems. Could that be why those practices were discouraged? I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem. No problem.
Anyway, could that be the purpose of them discouraging? Because I do know that in many Middle Eastern cultures, they still encourage even marriages even between first cousins.
Correct.
But not among brother and sister.
Correct. Yes, so you're right. Coming from our history, coming from where we both come from, we see that is frowned upon. And the reasons that you gave are actually correct. Sometimes it results in barrenness and a whole lot of problems based on experiences that we've had in our Hebrew culture back home in West Africa. So yes, it could be that based on how it was being done back then, that is why it got refined because of the issues that come with it. That is why it got refined when Moshe gave us, or Yah gave us the Torah through Moshe. So yes, it could be that. And I think we don't do that again. We used to do that back home, but we don't do that again. I mean, even cousins, right? You don't do cousins. Madam Ajua, can you remind? We don't do cousins back home, do we? No. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not direct cousins, but maybe second or third cousins.
Second or third, okay, yes. So, Yeah, it could be. Like I said, everything is refined when we got the Torah, Moshe's Torah. See, so not Abraham. So the rules were quite different from ours. Yes, Cynthia. Yes, please go ahead.
How did his brother die?
I can give you an oral tradition that's not in the text, but the Torah doesn't tell us. The oral tradition says that he was put in a furnace by Nimrod and he got burned.
That's by his cousin.
Say it again, sorry?
Saying that's by his cousin because they are the same nation here. You have Shem's
correct.
children and
correct.
You know.
Correct, yes. Yeah. So yeah,
It says it in one of the books of, I think it's the book of Enoch, I think it mentions about how he died, and it was the same kind of story. They said that he got dealt with by Enoch.
Yeah, I think it's Enoch or Joshua, one of them. Yes, it does. Yes, so one of the.
I just check factual or not. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an oral tradition. I cannot quote it from the text, from the Torah itself. I have to quote from other sources, but I haven't done that much research on that. So yeah, so it was both Abraham and him that was thrown in, and then he died. Because then again, it was Abraham who took the initiative, and then this one followed. He did as also. So it could have been, if the story is true, it could have been out of emotions. That's why he did it. You don't do things out of emotion because someone else did it. Understanding, having a clear understanding of what you're doing is key. So according to the story, Abraham challenged Nimrod, and he threw him into the fire, and Haran, it was like a contest, a showdown, and Haran happened to find himself in there also, and he did not make it out, but Abraham did. Because when you look at the town, the awe of the Chaldeans in the Hebrew would be the fires of the Chaldeans, the fire of the Chaldeans. So that's where the idea came from, that there was fire involved, if you translate it from a different level of understanding.
It's the same as the three Hebrew brothers that.
Correct. Yes, and it was the same place, right? it was the same place, Babel. So yeah, they're known for that. They're known for throwing people into the furnace.
Can I just ask, I know it's an oral tradition, but how come Abraham made it out and Haran didn't? I mean, if they were both put in the same kind of furnace.
Correct. It depends on the reason why he was thrown in there. When you have a strong conviction that there is a higher power, since everybody was worshiping idols and it did not make sense. There is a higher power who is out there, and according to the oral tradition, that was Abraham's claim, that there is a higher power. And during the debate or during the discussion, Nimrod throws him in there, and he comes out. He doesn't get consumed, just like the three Hebrew boys were not swallowed or eaten up by the lions. So it's based on their conviction. You know how two people do the same thing and it works for their one person? Because everybody goes in there with different, with different convictions.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Our family on YouTube, I don't know if the broadcast has ended. I don't think so. Before it does, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us and taking time to study with us. I'm hoping you go into our website. We do this every weekend. Go on our website, kingdomofkings.org, and look around. You can subscribe And this is what we do on the Shabbat for an hour and 30 minutes, and then we stay back and we fellowship and answer questions that we all have. So it would be nice to have you join us. I see 51 people. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I don't even know what I'm looking at. So please bear with me. I think Juliet is helping me do a good job. But I want to say Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Awesome. Are there any questions? Any more questions?
Rabbi, I have a question. This is Marie again.
Yes, Marie.
Okay. We know that Yahweh confounded the languages. Do we know? I know that there's some reference to 70 languages, but do we know what people group these languages kind of? I mean, apart from the ones that we are pretty sure of.
You're pretty sure.
Yeah, and for example, we know that Shem had several sons. Do we know what people group they all belong to today? I know we know some of them, but like, who are the Chinese, for example, and the Japanese, and like, who are they?
Good day. I don't have a very good answer for you. I can recommend you to somebody who might be glad to answer you, because I think that is one of his field, his focus. I can send you an email with his contact. His name is Ron Shields, Divine Prospect. He is very good with these things. So he would answer your Facebook post. He would answer your Facebook question or email. Yeah, I think he would be the right person to answer this, because that is necessarily not my strong suit. That's not my field.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to invite him one of these days to come in and answer some of these questions for us. I should do that. I will send him a text. Yeah, I'll send him a text message today and we'll discuss it. If he can come on and answer some of these historical questions, because he's amazing when it comes to and the Torah itself. He's a genius.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Yeah, he's a genius. I'll talk to him today and ask get his schedule so he can answer some of these questions for us.
So Rabbi.
Mr. Donald.
Yes, sir. I noticed, even though we don't get there yet, by looking down the road, Abraham didn't really give up, because he, based on what he did, sent his servant Eliezer to his family, Hagar, which is the other brother, house to get a wife for his son.
Yes.
And that would be a little twist, because Abraham's son, Yitzhak, could it be that it was Aaron who came back? Well, that's just my thinking here, because the Almighty is so great that he can bring back souls, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because we didn't hear too much, even though Isaac did his thing. We didn't hear too much about him, like as we heard about Yaakov, but the rest of the guys don't.
Correct.
So, because they all stick to the line right along, and even Lot, he served a great purpose there, because it was a reason why his name was mentioned.
Oh yes, Lot. Oh boy. I said, this man is awesome. Abraham, he's awesome. Lot is mentioned. Oh boy, I won't go ahead of me. I won't get excited.
Yeah, I just threw it. It's a part, right?
Yes, he played a critical role just to mess things up. I mean, you go on a quest to do something, and he wants to really know if it's genuine. That is So he brings everything against you that would make you give up.
It's amazing how you worked, eh?
Yeah, like I think there's a verse, is it the New Testament? It says, is it Old Testament, New Testament? It says, he who puts his hands on the plow and looks back is not fit for the
It's in
kingdom
New
of Yah.
Testament,
Yes.
somewhere.
You
I
cannot
know.
look back. When you say you're going to do this, and Yah says, let's see, will you do it? And
If you move your hand back, then you're not fit for the journey, right?
the journey, yes. You see, and that's why at the Akedah, when he said, go kill your son, your only son, the one whom you love, and he did not question it.
Definitely.
This is somebody he's been with. That was the goal. You know, you tell him a nation is going to come out of him, and now you give him the person who is going to be the beginning of the nation, and then you say, go kill him.
Yeah. So it was a test, right?
Yeah. And he doesn't question it.
Do it.
I wouldn't do it. I'll tell you that.
No, but I'm just saying, just to see if he would do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I say, is the devil? How Satan is speaking to me? I know.
Yeah, well,
it's the
all different type of reasons.
good,
that, right?
Yeah, it is the witches in my house. I would say all stuff, but he doesn't change. And then when he goes and he was asked to stop, he didn't even want to stop. He wanted to carry it through. That was why Yah said, my teacher tells me, it's not true, but this is how passionate he is when he's talking about Abraham. He said, I believe that was one of the first time Yah stood up from his throne, stood up and say, now I know that you stand in awe of me. And he says, by myself have I sworn. And blessing. You see, he should have said that when he talked to him in Genesis 12. But he didn't tell him that. He had to test him. And then when he passes all the tests, he says, now I know.
But Rabbi, the Jewish people says that they have to say that Abraham killed his son. I mean, based on the swiftness of the way he did it, knife, it sticked Isaac, and he died. But because of the cry of Levirate, at that point, it's as if
he came back.
Yeah, he was resurrected.
Yeah. I think that would be a midrash. And they usually a midrash is there's something in the text that is bothering them that let them make up such stories. You don't take it literally, according to what I've learned from how the Jewish worldview of reading the text. They don't take you're not supposed to take the midrash literal. But yes, it's how the text writes it, narrates it.
Definitely.
It's intense. It's very intense.
They said that he did not return with Abraham when he went back to Sarah, and because there's so much. Let's not get into it.
and then as we get there, I will introduce another twist. See, that was not the end of the test. There was one more test that he passed. One more test. It had to do with Sarah, but yes, it's an interesting narrative. We're going to take our time. 3 months. We're going to talk about this man. We'll look at everything that he did, all the steps that he took, his difficulties, where he fell short, where he excelled, all these things. Why he lied lie in parentheses about Sarai being his sister, his encounter with Abimelech. Awesome.
There's another thing here, Rabbi, because it mentioned that Terah, that Avram's dad, that he died. But based on how I've learned it, I've heard it before, is that did Terah really die here, or it just mentioned in this passage?
Very good question. No. So one thing you should know, the Torah is not in chronological order.
Definitely.
So no, he did not die when where it said it died.
Right.
Yes, he when you do the calculation, he lived some more years before that.
Yes.
Yes, but the text introduces his death because it's not telling you strict history. It's trying to give you the story. It's there's a message behind it, so it would rearrange certain events so that it can portray that story.
Yes, Robert.
Okay.
I understand.
You have the same example in the book of Numbers. In the book of Numbers, we are taught about Moses' death, but Moses did not die to Deuteronomy.
Right.
But his death is recorded there because I think it was after Phinehas or after somebody had done a great act, and then the daughters of Zelophehad, and then Moses sharing the land or telling them what possessions, how they should handle inheritance. Right after these three narratives, we are told about Moses' death. The reason it is put there is because it fits the context of what is being said, the message there. So the Torah rearranges. So you're very right. Where it says Terah died, he hadn't died yet if you're looking at the text from a historical point of view. No, he lived some more years after that. But it said he died so that the focus will now shift to Abraham.
Right, so he would not have to come back in the picture.
Come back into the picture, correct? Because it started with his generation. So let's finish his generation and then come back and then take the story from Abraham and focus on Abraham. To do that, you have to let him leave the stage.
Yes.
And then so you do that by saying he died. So that you can focus on. That's very good observation. True.
Shabbat Shalom. Blessings.
Shabbat Shalom. You're welcome, Mr. Donald.
I'll be here. I'm listening.
Yeah, so we should know this by now. The Torah is not in chronological order. It would finish a narrative and then go back into maybe the middle. It mentions something whilst given the narrative and focus on something else in the text. The same thing happens with Abraham. It finishes his lineage and then the focus becomes Isaac. Yes. You would, if you don't know this, you think it contradicts itself. But no, it's not giving you strict history. Torah means instructions. It is telling you stories using history, not strict history. The messages are hidden there. So it would rearrange certain narratives. It will put them together so to give you the message that it's trying to portray. So it's not in chronological order, not at all. Yeah, it's all around. It's all in the text. Yes, madam. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you guys can hear me. I've been trying for so long. But anyway, so when you say that, you mean that's kind of like with everything, right? With everyone, you kind of notice it says, and then they die. But then right after, it talks about the years of their life and who and what they begot and all that stuff. So we should always look at it as when it says they died, don't just assume they're dead right then. Like, keep our mind and focus that when these people are forgotten, obviously that their father is still alive.
Yes. So sometimes it's just.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So you started the story talking about Noah. Now you want to talk about Shem. Well, you have to let Noah leave the stage before you can start talking about Shem. So you say, and he died. So some people say, how did Moshe write that he died himself? Well, you cannot ask that question because sometimes people die. People are said to be dead in the text when they are not dead. The reason is because they want them off the stage so that we can introduce a different character.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So yes, when you're having debates, you see, sometimes it's hard to have debate with other people. Let's say our friends, our Kermit brothers, because you have to understand how the text is written for you to debate on it. When you say the flood did not happen, now you say it did not happen, but the people who wrote it from their worldview, it happened. So you cannot read it from the 21st century lens. You have to read it from their lens. before you can understand it. If you're coming from the other end, we have a we have a problem. Okay, so understanding the text, what is written for, how to read it first. Now we can have our discourse on maybe the problems you might have about the text. It's just knowing how to read it. It's not strictly history. It's not strictly laws. It's not strictly philosophy. No, they are telling the story through the lens of history, through the lens of law, through the lens of philosophy, to give us a message. That is the goal. To give us.
I really like that you just said that, because I agree with that. A lot of times I feel like we read the Bible and then we judge it, and we judge them.
Correct.
So we can't properly assess it for ourselves because we're still in judgment. It doesn't seem right because what we're thinking is wrong. We're just so caught up that it's wrong, and we're not looking at it, like you said, in the perspective of the people of the time. Correct. At that time. Correct. Before we put it to ourselves.
Yes. And we do that. Maybe some things were not frowned upon in their day. They didn't see it as bad at all. We look back and say, oh, that's abnormal. Abnormal to who? You? In 21st century Las Vegas?
Right, like with the marrying your sisters, right? Like the whole family thing and that. You're like, but if you, I get it, like the whole Egypt, Pharaoh, all that stuff. I get it from their perspective.
Yes, okay, yes. Mentions, that's it. Lana mentions another very good one. When it tells, you see, in Genesis 10, I think I mentioned this to somebody in a debate, not a debate, a discussion. In Genesis 10, you're told about the genealogy of Noah. I'm reading what Lana writes. And the families and their languages. You're told about the languages before the Tower of Babel is narrated to you. So the question we ask is, wait a second. When did the languages come when you have not even told me about the Tower of Babel? So what the Torah did was, it tells you there were languages. And then the next chapter, it shows you how the languages come about. So it's mentioned something. Now it's going to take one whole chapter to explain a detail in the story that it mentioned prior, the one that you just read. Yes. So we call it a flashback. Yes.
Of Babel.
Yes.
That makes sense looking at it like that, because I was very confused because you know that there were the mounts of east and of the kingdoms and all that stuff, but then you look at it, they're preserving a language. They thought it was only one language, but now I understand. Thank you. I was very confused the whole time. I get that now.
You're welcome. Yes. So that's what's going on there. And I think whilst I was teaching, I saw Lynette came up with a question. So with what I've said, the natural question that should come out is, so is Isaac an extension of Haran? No. Because with the Yibum, when you do it, the child that comes out of it is going to be perpetuating the name of the deceased brother. No, not in this case, because when Yah speaks to him, he tells him that now I want you to go for yourself. You started a journey to go for your brother. You did not really have to do it, but you did it, which shows that you're going to carry this thing out. But now, lekker. It's very difficult to explain that lekker in English, but it's like go. It can mean go to you. Go for your own benefit. Go for yourself. And then I'll make you great. So that, to answer your question, Lynette, I think you asked, I saw it pop up when I was speaking.
Rabbi.
Yes, Madam.
Can you use any Ghanaian term to express it?
That's let's see, Juliet, Bernard. Go to lekker. Go to yourself.
So can you see it in Ghana better?
No. Yeah. Hey, how would I say it?
Or there might be a proverb that's
Yes,
expresses.
you know how it's difficult to translate it from English if directly. It changes, might be a whole sentence. Yes, Mr. Simon, can you please? Mr. Simon, can you? Mr. Simon said it can. Yeah. I don't know. Ya can't ohe. Polenche, ya polenche. It's
Oh,
like,
we can't hear you, Mr. Simon.
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Mr. Simon, we can't hear you.
Can't hear.
Yeah, it will be a long yeah. It's like to go for yourself. But podenche, ya how he kind of.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
take care of yourself.
Correct. Bodenche, yeah, that is go for yourself.
Relatives and see.
Okay, yes, it's you know my guy is Las Vegas guy. It's not.
So we have to go and ask the elders.
Yes. My guy. Oh, it says self-introspection. Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Like Grandma, hey, think about yourself. Think Grandma, hey, go for yourself. Now the assignment is not for Haran, it's for yourself.
Okay.
Lana is laughing at me. No, I can speak it, but if you put me on the spot, if I get angry, oh yes, you will hear me speak it fluently.
That's terrible.
Or in prayer. You know, in prayer, you hear me. Sometimes in prayer, and that's where language also comes into play. You know, sometimes when it gets intense, it's not natural. Let me share this with you. I have a friend who trains dogs for the military, and he does that in Israel. In a conversation, I asked him, so when you're training the dogs, let's say if you're going to give the dogs to the Russians to use for their police and the military, do you teach the dog how to speak, how to understand Russian, or you teach the dog handler how to speak Hebrew? And he said the other way around. You teach the dog how to understand Russian. You don't teach the Russian how to speak to the dog in Hebrew, even though the dog was trained, initially trained with the Hebrew tongue to act when the person spoke Hebrew. Now you have to train the dog to understand Russian, not the other way around. And I said, is it not difficult? He said, yeah, it's way difficult, but that is what you want to do. So I asked why, and he said, when you are in a war zone under pressure, the Russian will naturally speak Russian, not Hebrew. He will speak his original tongue because adrenaline is pumping. He's not thinking about Hebrew. What comes out naturally is the Russian. So because of that, you want to teach the dog Russian, not the handler Hebrew, because when he is under stress, he will forget all the Hebrew he knows. He's going to go naturally to his mother tongue. So it's the same thing. Remember, sometimes when the adrenaline is pumping, when you're stressed, you're angry, sometimes in prayer, you know, you feel it's not going because you speak in the English language, and then you switch and then you come local, and you see that sometimes we say funny that our problems are not bilingual. When you hear an African person say that, he's in that his problems does not speak English. You know, they speak the local dialect, so you have to speak the local dialect to it. You know, so
Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
As you're speaking about language, I remember one of your lecture, you mentioned Nago, about when you calling people together, right?
Correct.
And so in Jamaican, now we said, if I use that, I would put like me in front front of that to say minago. So that would mean that I am not going. That's what.
Oh, okay. I go gather and say me not go. I'm not going. Nice. Yes.
So the word laka, how do you spell it?
Lechlecha.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Leka. That is the most important words ever spoken in the Torah. Go for yourself, for your benefit. It is when Yah calls Abraham and he says, I'm going to work with you. But go, this is going to be to your benefit. It's my assignment, it's my mission, but it's going to be to your benefit. And he's going without knowing where he's going. Leka. Go to yourself for your benefit. Yes, please go
Rabbi,
ahead.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
The Arabs are Evers as well, technically. What will become of them when things get corrected as far as we're concerned?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I have no idea on that. Sorry. Yes, they are Evers, they're Hebrews. No. So the difference is that's why our family in the West want to specify the Israelite, because there's a lot of Hebrews. There's anybody who came, all of Abraham's children are Hebrew, but it's only Isaac that the lineage of Isaac through Jacob that you have the Israelites as a nation. So what will happen of them? I don't know.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi, I think the question is who decide? It's not us.
Correct.
Yeah, right?
Correct, yes. Okay. Mr. Simon, I wish you could talk. Awesome. Because the Evers say I go. We also say I go the gas. We also say I go. Amaah. And then you say, especially when you're pouring libation, you have to gather attention, and then you have to say what it is. Meaning when is today. Today is Monday. Being powerful chi. How many days make a month, and then you start Wobolo Mau, our creator Mau. That's how you start the libation pouring. So it's yeah. We'll do a video on that. On the libation pouring. How it's done, the different ways of holding the calabash, when you're pouring it in front of you, what it means, when you're pouring it away from you, what it means, all that. So, and usually when they're pouring the libation, they speak so fast, you might think that they're chanting something, but if you listen carefully, you hear what they're saying. You gather attention, and then you say which day it is. It's like you're naming the date, and then you address Yahweh, call him Mawu. Address him first, and then the ancestors, and then you go on. When you address the ancestors, there's no idol worship. You're not worshiping them. I explain why also. You address the ancestors. It's the same thing when you say the Yah of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's the same thing that you're doing when they're pouring libation. The same idea. Same idea. So you mention the ancestors that have gone before you, and then you start pouring the libation with a prayer. we saying pai, aying pai. The trees will say paibo. All it means is prayer. That's all it means. Prayer. Paibo. That's how we prayed before. They came and told us that to pray, you kneel down when you put your hands together and look up. You look up. We've always prayed with Am I back? I came back.
Let me check. I'll let you know.
Present to everyone. Yes, okay. I should be back now.
Yep, you're back.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so yeah, that's about the libation. We'll talk about that. That's how we pray. That's even when you get a visitor, when you get a visitor, usually now you bring them into your living room, what we call living room. But back home, you sat outside, maybe on the patio and the porch. And when they come, the first thing you do for your visitors is bring them a drink. Because you didn't have cars, you have to catch the bus or the trotro or walk. So you give them a drink, they drink some, and then they leave a little, and then they pour it on the ground. It's a form of prayer. You can't do that in your living room with tiles. Okay. If you do it these days, they'll tell you you're primitive. But but a lot of people are now going back. A lot of people are now going back to these traditions because we are studying that now they have meaning. You see, that is how Yah chooses to relate to Israel. We don't have to adopt the customs or the ways of the other nations, how they have been given. Their perspective, their language of worshiping Yah is not the same language that we use to worship Yah. So when we stick with our perspective, we communicate better. It's more natural. See, it's not, you're not performing an act. No, this is how we pray. And it's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. Awesome. Any other questions? Any other questions from YouTube? We have 10 more minutes. I think we can close at noon. So.
Question from YouTube. Rabbi, do you speak modern Hebrew that the Ashkenazi speak, which is mixed with Yiddish? And if so, how close is it to the original Hebrew that you speak?
Yes. So the modern Hebrew is what we call Yiddish. It's more European. And how close is it? It's not too close. Sometimes it's not close at all. Because the vowels, you see, the reason why it's not close is that with ancient Ewe, which is also just consonants, what they called Katav Ivri, not Katav Ashurit. So when you meet an Ashkenazi, there's two Hebrews. Even I forgot the tractate it is in their Talmud. I forgot the tractate that it's in. They agree that the Torah was written in Katav Ivrit, not Katav Ashurit. So Katav Ivrit is what Moshe wrote in the symbols that we still use in the Yeshiva shrine of the Eves. When you write those, the words tell you what the vowel is. Okay. With modern Hebrew, you use the dots, the nukot. So yeah, nikudot. See, that is made up. So it's somebody telling you this is what the vowel is. But with ancient Hebrew, the name of the alphabet tells you what the vowel is. That is why when you watch one of my videos, when we look at the name of Yah, from ancient time, we've called him Yahweh. Even the Hebrews back home, the Eves cannot tell you why it is called Yahweh, where we got the vowels from. But when you talk to somebody who's familiar with the Feshidi shrine and then the alphabet, it tells you what the vowel is. So when you write, so Yud He Vav He, the name of Yah, Yahweh, in modern Hebrew is Yud. In ancient Hebrew is Yah. The whole name is Yashi. What you call He is He. What you call Va or Wa is ve. It's a V that is the top is a little curvy. Is ve. So Yud He Vav He will be Yahi Vehi. So Yud He Vav He in modern Hebrew, ancient Hebrew will be Yahi Vehi. Different. So you get Yahweh instead of Yahweh. Okay. David's name, you get Devi, but he is David, or David, or David is Devi. You know. So it's totally different. But one good thing is if you learn the modern one, the transition is very easy. The modern one is readily available to learn, but the ancient one, you have people like Brother Simon here, you know, who can speak it easily when you just show him the technique. You know, it's knowing the names of the correct names of the alphabets, and then how to get the vowel, because the moment you get the name of the alphabet wrong, your vowel will change. So, example, at Hasinai, when Moshe, so Moshe will be Mosi. It's not Moshe, Mosi. That is how you say Moshe, Mosi. Okay, so when Moshe asked Yahweh, what is his name? You read, some people say Ahaya. It says, the Yorubas will say Iye, Ashe Iye. I don't know whether Mr. Simon can speak or comment on this. In the ancient Hebrew, it would be Eyaye, not Iye, Eyaye, Ashe Eyaye. Eyaye will translate as like he is the one. That is why they say I am. Oh, someone actually is not I am, it's I shall be. But in the ancient tongue is he is the one, like I'll say in my tongue, Lenny, like he is the one. So Moshe asked, if I go to Egypt and they ask me, what is your name? What should I tell them? He says, tell them I'm the one. He is the one. Who is the one? He's the one who made the covenant with Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. The one that has come to make sure that that covenant is fulfilled. Tell them, Eyaye, he is the one. So yes, it's quite different, but it's easy when you have the modern Hebrew. You know, all you have to do is write the modern Hebrew, look at it, look at the vowels that come up when you put into the ancient Eve, and you can just pronounce it. I know people who do it on the fly. I cannot do it on the fly. I have to actually write it down because it's not my mother tongue. I know the rules because of the modern Hebrew. So you write it down and then the vowels, put in the vowels. So when it comes to the vowels, so most people, majority people know the first alphabet as an ox, like an ox. You know, but the problem is no one can tell you why is it an ox? They'll say it represents strength, but like, why is it an ox? You know, when you ask the ancient Ave, you show them there's the symbol, they tell you, oh, it's the head of a sheep. The head of a sheep is Ale. That's where they get the Aleph from. It's Ale. Aleph. Okay. Why would it be the head of a sheep? Because who is the head of the sheep? Is Yah. That's why the Ashkenazi would tell you that the first alphabet always represents Yah. No. When we look at it, we look at the strength of it, of an ox. Okay. If Yah wants to use an animal to represent strength, he will not use an ox. Is there anywhere in Tanakh that he associates himself with an ox? I don't think so. That's why Judah's called the lion of the, not the ox, the lion of the tribe of Judah. The lion represents strength, not the ox. But we say Ale sheep, he's the head. Moshe only drew the head of the sheep. Okay. He only drew the head of the sheep, meaning that he's the head of the sheep. Ale is sheep, but the head of a sheep in ancient Hebrew is aleta. The ta is the head. That's why when we're migrating and then we got to Dahomey, they said they called the capital Tado, meaning that Ta is the head. The head has arrived. That means Judah has arrived. So Aleta is the head of the sheep. That is what Moshe drew. You get the vowel from the last syllable, the AH, which is the A sound. So we know that the first alphabet is actually makes an A sound. The first one is Bavo. That's where you can use bait or vait. If you should ask anyone who speaks modern Hebrew, why can it be B or V? They tell you it's bait as a house. But why can you use B or why can you use V? Because sometimes we see B is used, sometimes we see V. They can tell you. Well, the Eves can tell you because the word, the alphabet is Bavo. It has two consonants. It has two vowels there, Bavo. So it depends. The principle is if I wasn't teaching Hebrew today. If the B, so you have Abraham, okay. There's a B in his name, but the B doesn't start the name. The B is in the middle of the name. Anytime B comes in the middle of the name, you use the V. If it begins the name, you use the B. If it happens in the middle, it's a V. So it's Bavo. We say bait or vait. Where did they get it from? Because the word itself is Bavo. And then Hihe. So you look at the symbols. The symbols have a name. And then what he did was he took everyday items in the Hebrew culture and he used them as symbols. That's it. Okay, so we have what we call hey. You have a woman, usually somebody will interpret it as somebody praying, somebody standing with their hands up. But that is the modern mind. That is what you see in the modern perspective, in the modern language. That's why I say language is very important. Okay. But if you look at it from the ancient perspective, it's actually different. I'm trying to see if I can show you a picture. Okay, there's a picture here that I can show you. You see what the woman is carrying here? So when Moshe wrote the hey, it was somebody with their hands up. Okay. What she's doing is she has the stool. So let me explain the picture. They are enacting the Exodus story. These are the Anglo-Eves. They are enacting the Exodus story from Egypt, from Israel all the way to West Africa. This is what they're doing. This is the the Hogbachocho festival. That is what it's about. I talked about it in Canada. They're enacting the Exodus story. That is their history. That is all they know. The Exodus story. What she's doing is she is pulling down the stool on her head, and at the same time she's supporting it. She's pulling it down and she's supporting it. So when you see that symbol, what we call the hey, and you see the person with the arms lifted up, they're not praying. When you go to the marketplaces, there are people who carry your stuff. We call them kayayo. So they're holding the thing on their head and then they're pulling it down. That is the symbol that Moshe drew. So anybody who understands the culture, the moment they see that symbol, they actually can look around and see that symbol and they know that this is what he means, to support and then to pull. Okay. So this is how The ancient Eves can tell you where the symbol comes from, what their names are, and by telling you the names, we can tell you where to get the vowels. And the person who you can contact, an expert on it, will be Mauvi. If you don't know him, go on my website under readings, I think Taste of Text. Under readings, you see a book by Mauvi. He's the one that I will be speaking with in London in June. So that's the difference. Sorry, I was long-winded, but that is the difference between the ancient Hebrew and then the modern Hebrew.
Rabbi.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad you mentioned that, you showed that, because when you were explaining on YouTube the whole thing about the name.
Yes.
You mentioned the scarf that they put under the container that the lady was carrying on her head.
Yes.
You know what we call that scarf when we wrap it like that?
No.
We call it a kata. What is kata in Hebrew?
Wow.
We call it a kata.
Kishre. What is attack? Oh, my I'm missing different dialects on my tongue. Taco. Okay. Yes.
All right.
Yes. And then the cheese will say kishre, I think. Mr. Simon, what would the ever say? Yes, so that supports it. That cushion that Mr. Donald mentioned, it supports. If it's heavy, like this lady here, if it's heavy, this is also the Exodus. They are enacting the Exodus narrative, one of the festivals that they do. So she doesn't have the cloth. Let's see, this woman has the cloth. There you go. So that cloth underneath the weight supports it.
Right. We do that.
Yes. It's supposed to support it. So when you see that symbol, the first thing that comes into your mind is that. That's why the culture is. And they can do that. You see what she's done? She can even run with it, run 100 meters race, and it will not fall. It takes skill. Some people can carry a bucket of water on top of the head like that, and it will not, one bit will not spill.
Oh, definitely. Yes. We do that.
Yes. So, yes, that's the difference between the two. And yeah, so what they're doing is they're enacting all this has meaning. You see just one piece of wood. It all has meaning. One day would explain all of it. And these are the ever kings here. These are them. They are there for the festival. And these guys are pouring libation. You see how they've taken their wrap from their shoulders and then they're holding it like that is a sign of respect. You remove. You don't come before you're dressed up looking. No, you have to. You can't wear certain things. So some of them will go barefooted. Like the person doing the libation, you can notice that he doesn't have any shoes on. And what he's holding, that brown thing, is the calabash. And this they're using snap. Yes.
Wow.
So they're using snap. What he's holding is the bottle of snap, and it's in there, and he's praying into the microphone, and then he is pouring the libation. With this, he's going to pour it close to him, not away from him. Would explain all that sometime. Awesome.
I have a question. Is this fine?
Yes.
I know that you don't subscribe to the 12 tribes chart, but we who are scattered all over the Americas, how do we know like where we belong? How do we figure this out, or do we even try?
Oh yes, so yes, it's good to try. It's actually very good to go back and say, this is where I come from. You might not be able to determine which exact tribe you are, but I think you actually get some level of closure if you say, you know what, this is the history. If you can trace your descendants to the slave ships, it means that you came from the coast of West Africa. And then now you have to study the coast of West Africa, the history, and see what took place. And then when you study that, you will notice that majority, if not all, majority of the people who came via the transatlantic slave trade were from one people. They were from the Hebrews, because those that we met there, some of the people that we met there, they were not selling each other. They knew you can differentiate how you can. It's amazing. You can differentiate an Ashanti from a Ga. You can differentiate an Ewe from a Ga, even though Ewe's Gans, like, we're the same people, but you can distinguish. Features gives it out. The dialect they speak gives it out. So the people that were sold were actually from one group of people that migrated from Israel, and we have eyewitness report. It's not just something we're making up. We have eyewitness reports also from the people who we met on these lands when we got there. So to really say that, to really prove, that's why sometimes I have an issue, not an issue, a concern with anyone who says, I'm just only going to use the Bible. It's difficult to just use the Bible. Okay. So you have to go backwards, and you find yourself on the coast of West Africa. And then when you go even backwards, listen to the oral traditions where we came from. If you listen to the songs that we sing, you will notice that we actually came from a faraway place. We migrated to that location. Okay. And then DNA also, these days, DNA helps, but without history, DNA won't go anywhere. So the history is also key. So the history tells you this is where the Hebrews came from. And then when you do your DNA, it actually matches the story that is being told.
Rabbi, I'd like to encourage everyone that present day Ghana, for example, has so many intermarriages.
Yes.
No one person is from even two different tribes.
Correct.
Because if you want to consider your grandparents and your great-grandparents, you will trace your roots to many different tribes.
Yep.
Even when people intermarry outside of their tribe and outside of their people, there are certain cases where they will continue to declare that relationship. But there are certain cases where there is an embarrassment of saying, my father is from an outside tribe, and they will cut that off completely and stick to the mother tribe or whichever parent parented them. So I've come to realize that no one festival is for one person, especially a Ghanaian who lives in a major city will find out that a lot of the festivals that go on still apply to us because our blood is so mixed up now.
Correct.
Even to friends that I know I know this guy is pure Ashanti, and I tell him, look, you're Ashanti, this is what you're supposed to do. What are you doing at Asafutu Festival?
Correct.
My great-grandfather came from here.
Yeah.
I tell you, my mother's mother is from this village and my father's father is from Togo, all over the West Coast.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So we need to go where our spirit feels comfortable and is accepted. And the village lifestyle is very difficult. They are not always welcoming of even people from Accra.
Correct.
So where you find and comfort, you can find rest with them, because they are not easy people to get along with.
Oh, yes, definitely. There are a lot of things they frown upon. I mean, we've lost the culture, so you go there and it's a different...
There are ways and a lot of things. So it's difficult to, even a lot of people who live in Accra or Kumasi find it difficult going back home and finding their place.
Yes.
So that journey alone is a huge journey.
Correct.
And it's caused by our direct parents, my living parents, causing a rift between traditional ways and our modern ways. And so the traditionalists have become very wary and cautious of people coming in.
Correct.
They think that these are class folk, these Western folk think they're coming to tell us what to do, and we're going to show them that they are the visitors. And unfortunately, that attitude has spread out to all those in the diaspora, and those of us who are yearning to find our way back have a problem caused by our direct parents. Because the other day I asked my mother, where would you like to be buried one day? And she goes, oh, anywhere. You can bury me here in the United States. And I said, no. I want to be buried with my ancestors. So I need to start making a link back home.
Correct.
So that wherever the plots are, and they can put me there.
Yes.
And I
that's strange that she would say that, because most people would tell you, take me home.
No, modern day people are changing. They want to be buried where children are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, where their children are. There are people who are not traditional, who are looking down on their traditions, and they want to be. They're not even looking forward to a huge funeral anymore. They want Western things. And my mother is the firstborn and holds a very strong position in her family, and has developed these kinds of attitudes, and I'm telling her, and I was surprised that she was accepting of me saying I would like to go back home, but this is a village that I've been to only once in my childhood. I don't know anything about, but I later have found my spirit wandering, and not at peace, to the point of having dreams of visiting my hometown, and they don't realize that the next generation are looking for home. So things are going to change, but the conversation, we need to find a way to have a conversation with people back home to be more accepted, because this thing about libation is so scary to me. And pouring of holy water is something that used to be scary to me also. But I've now gotten to terms with pouring of oil around the home when you're having difficult times. And now you're saying it's libation, and it does make sense. So along the way, through the Catholic Church, through the first Christians, how was this process of libation tweaked so much that it's no longer really biblical the way we're doing it? And I'm very curious to know the history and to see the path that took.
Yes. Yes, it's true. Well, first you have to let the people know that what they're doing is wrong, is idol worship. There's a lot of factors that I think went into it. But for us to just let it loose, see, and that's one thing that even though I don't like their ways, but my tribe people, when it's time for the Passover and they plant their corn and they say no drumming and dancing, they don't play with it. Okay, they actually go and vandalize churches if they don't heed to the instructions that the chiefs is given. Because this is our land. It's time for the Homo. It's time for the Passover. These are the rules, and you have to keep to them. Otherwise, they would come in there on the Sunday. You're playing music, they would vandalize the whole place because they hold dear to these customs. Okay. they hold very dear to them. So yeah, it's amazing if we're able to do a research and find out how did we completely move away from it. See, it's amazing. It's amazing what we have preserved also, and it's amazing the change that is coming. You know, it's scary, if I can say that. It is scary how everybody is saying that, okay, let's go back to what our ancestors left for us. And now we're looking at it from our lens, that the original lens. And it's not filthy any longer. It's not, we agree, it's not westernized. It doesn't have to be. This is what makes us different from the rest. So why not? Let's keep to it. And it's amazing now the Jewish rabbis want to study the customs. They want to know how casting lot is done. They want to understand the libation. You know, they want to understand all these things. Because now people are coming out saying that we are the true people and we can prove it. And we're doing such. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm just jumping in here because the other day I got a video of the kings of Jordan and stuff like that, and how the Jewish people, this Jewish rabbi went there and was trying to tell them to change, that he's there to fight for them to become a part of Israel, to, you know, stuff like that. But could it be that the same thing that they did before, they're trying to do it again in order to steal and to try to Christianize or whatever it's called, change the Jordan. They are from Gadites. They want to change them to become a part of the Jewish people, so to speak. Isn't this another apostasy that they are planning here?
Yes, a lot of a lot of money has been invested in West Africa to build synagogues, and they're having them convert to Judaism. Okay, and they spend a lot of money, even in Ghana. The what do you call them? Seshi. Auntie Ajua, help me.
Sorry, I haven't followed up with those things.
Yes, is it Seshi? How do you, it's Seshi Bekwai, right? That's how you pronounce Seshi.
Okay. Yes, Seshi Bekwai.
Seshi, yes. The Seshi, they are people who've traced themselves to Israel. But what is happening is you have these Ashkenazi Jews in West Africa, actually in Ghana, investing money, and what they're doing is they are teaching them Judaism. No, the head of that community is actually on my WhatsApp group, and chatting with him. I think it was, what's her name? Sister Only Love of Prophetic Whirlwind. She's the one who made the connection with me and the gentleman. You know, so they're doing this. So now it is our responsibility to go there and say, hey, wait a second. You don't have to convert to anything. You know, if there's any conversion, the people who are telling you to convert, they're the ones supposed to do the conversion. You don't have to do anything because this is the history, you see. So there's a lot of work to be done, we agree. Just as our brothers are, how they say, waking up in the West, there's a lot of waking up that has to be done also on the West African coast. It's not everybody, you know, people think that everybody in West Africa know that they're Hebrew. Sorry, all the Hebrews in West Africa know that this is not common knowledge that you'll find. Yes, there are people like the Gans, they are the Gans, the Eves, they're people who from day one will tell you that we are Hebrews, but it's not across the board. Okay. So now what we have to do, or what we are doing, is we go back and say, okay, now this is the evidence, and there's a wave, it's awesome, there's a wave of change that is coming. Okay.
Because a lot of stealing is going on. The war is huge. It's bigger than you can really see. it's huge.
Yes, it's huge. I mean, it's prophecy that is being fulfilled. Yeah. And I think we are at a time in history that a lot of things are going to be shifted. And it's very critical, it's very critical. So like in July, this summer, we're going home. It's supposed to be a vacation, but if you look at my itinerary, it would have been better if I just stayed in Vegas and did a staycation rather, because it's more more work and more speaking engagement. Because what is happening is, you see, what is easy is that when you explain it to them, they get it. Why? Because they live the culture, but they've been told that it's evil, it's idol worship. But now when you open the text and you read it and you tell them, explain it to me, it's like clockwork. He tells you what it means. Why? Because it's his culture. So now we have to go back and say, okay, now this is the culture that you've been practicing for so long. Somebody came and told you that it was idol worship. Okay. But clearly, it is something that it's in this book that you hold close to, that you hold dear to. Now, I want you to start reading it from a different perspective, not from the Western point of view, but put it into the context of your culture. And it's amazing. Amazing. I told you my sister-in-law, I was asking her questions. I gave her the symbols, the ancient symbols, and I was asking her, what is this? What is this? She went through all the symbols without blinking. And I told her, do you know that you just spoke ancient Hebrew to me? She did not even know it was Hebrew. She had no clue. So she went through, she was shocked. I'm like, you just spoke something without formal education, without sitting under anybody to learn any tongue. But from your local dialect, you've been able to tell me all the alphabets. You've been able to speak and tell me the vowels without even thinking about it. So when we start doing that, you see that the game changes. You see that the game changes. The text says sit in booths. What is a booth? What is a sukkah? Tell you do this. You don't need to tell me. We sit in booths, sukkahs, huts all day. Not even only Sukkot. We don't sit only on Sukkot. So this is how it helps. The culture really helps. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
The resurrection is real.
It is.
The predicted or prophesied resurrection is real. A lot of us are dead, we're dead, but we are waking up.
Correct. Oh, yes.
There are lots of living deads walking around, but when the word reaches them, they are going to wake up.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. And you see, not only those who are waking up, the generations that precede us. I went to lecture somewhere, and it was a 90-year-old Gama, and I talked about the migration route of the Gars, the people that we met, the kings who we met, the rivers that we crossed. I gave a detailed account of it. At the end of the lecture, he came to me almost in tears, and he said, I thought that we had lost it. I thought this generation did not care. And he said, but now we can go to sleep because we know that it will not be forgotten. They knew these things. It's just that they did not have the means to communicate it. But now we have the technology. Now is the time. Now we have the means to reach the whole world. And now we can tell the story from our point of view. We can tell our own history and say, this is it. This is what our fathers passed on to us. Because I can remember my grandmother sweeping, singing. The song she's singing was, the Assyrians kicked us out of our land. We came from I never thought, see, when they sing these songs, you don't listen to the lyrics. You think it's something that she's just saying. But the history was put in the song. We have a gentleman who sings Wogbejeke. Every Ghana event they play, meaning that we're from far away. Yes, they put obstacles in front of us. They said we cannot jump, but a generation is coming that they will defy those things. They will jump. They will jump so high that they will hear about us. And then they said from the beginning we were birthed. That's what the song says. So it's there. It's just bringing it to the forefront and telling the world, this is what our history is. This is what has been passed down to us. We were never lost. Maybe we were just asleep. But there's a generation on the other side that are looking for identity. They're looking for quest, legacy. They knew they came from the coast of West Africa. And if we can get up, if we from the other side, the continent can get up and say, this is the information that you're looking for, and present it, I think that is the greatest act of selflessness, to help another person find their legacy, where they came from. And this has been the goal, to give answers to those who are searching for it. Our brothers in the West searching for it.
Hallelujah. Rabbi, I just have a few comments. Is there, concerning the alphabet, is there a way we could get a list of the ancient Hebrew alphabet and the pronunciations and the associated symbols? And two, I'm throwing this out there as a project for the tech-minded people. I read of a calendar in the Book of Jubilees that's 364 days long. It's solar, and from season to season, it's 91 days. So the whole year is 364. Is there any way we could calculate where exactly we are in history using that calendar? Is there any way to do that as a separate calendar from the modern Hebrew calendar? Because I do have an issue with the modern Hebrew calendar being only 354, 355 days. We're off 10 days, and every couple of years they had a leap month.
Correct.
And one more thing. When I mapped out this calendar and the ancient Ga calendar, which was 28 days, 13 months each, 364, there's a problem. Yom Kippur is always on a Friday. So if you're going to have Yom Kippur on a Friday, where do you prepare food for Saturday?
Oh boy. I don't know. I just say So let's start from the top. Yes, there is a book coming out called Evenye, and it's going to, I believe, address that. Maoli Maovi's book is going to be released this summer. Evenye, and I believe is going to address that. The book release is going to be in West Africa, but we should get copies here. Definitely get copies here. So that should. I'm not an expert. Like, I'll tell you that. I'm not an expert when it comes to the Asian tongue. There are experts out there who can do that easily. But yes, we'll look out for that book, Evenye. And we'll look out for that book. It's going to tell a lot. I think he's going to talk about the Exodus from the West African point of view, how we saw it, how it happened. He's going to talk about certain things that would explain certain nuances in the text of the Torah that we have. So I was going to make videos on that topic on YouTube, but he asked me to stop because if you go to Wikipedia and you research that topic, you have a lot of conflicting information. So the better thing to do out of respect is to present it to the elders first, to the chiefs, so that they know what is coming, because we're going to be challenging the story that's been told. So since we're going to challenge something very critical in the history of the Hebrews, we want to present it to, one second. You want to present it to the elders first, and then we start sending it out. So look forward to that. So what the picture you're seeing is going to go into details about this event and how we saw it from our perspective. About the calendar, I have no comments on it. I can do some research. I can talk to the Wulome, the people who actually, we say they pick the stones. It's just like lots to determine the months where the harvest starts and all that. I think Bernard on here is a good resource because he is best friends with one of the Wulome that passed. I don't know that he's still living, but it's something that we can do. It's a research that we can do. Madam Tao, it's something, and hopefully, if we're able to go home this summer, I should be able to sit with the elders face to face, and then there's this one particular one that I really want to have a conversation with, and actually two people, Nia J. Clue and the other one, I forgot his name, that they are full of these customs, just that most of them are not fluent in English. So the second one, the one that I think is quite important, he's not fluent in English, so most of his stuff is in a local dialect. So the goal is if I can record him and then write it back in English, which is what we want to do, I think it will be a very good thing. Very good thing, because he has a material he calls it nekemo. Nekemo meaning this is rather this. So he's retelling the narrative, and he's from the royal house, and he was one of the historians. So when a chief is going to be installed, you have to know the history. He's one of the people who tells the history. So yeah, he has an article called Nekemo, meaning it's rather this. This is rather this narrative, not what you have been told. So I had my mom go meet him and took his number. I've been in touch with him. So this is one that I'm looking forward to in the summer when we get to, God willing, go back home for a series of conferences and events. So I think we'll put that on our to-do list, Madam Tao, and I should be able to get you some answers. Talk to some of the people back home and see.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. There's a lot to do. But if I'm able to talk to him and I'm willing, I'm able to, I'll record everything that he says. He is full of wisdom, full of knowledge about the culture, full of knowledge.
Brother Basil, I hope you will put up your itinerary so that if anybody wants to follow you,
yes, okay, I'll do that. My dad was asking me, are you coming on holidays or you coming to lecture? I'm like, I think I'm coming to lecture.
Yes.
He said, oh boy.
Yes. People can see if they can make it happen.
Okay, I'll work on that. We'll do that. We will do that. We'll do that. So, yes.
Rabbi, it's Maria Ben.
Yes, Maria.
Sorry. You mentioned that the so-called Jews are flooding into West Africa to indoctrinate our people.
Yes.
What can you tell me something that gives me encouragement? Because it seems like for so many hundreds, probably thousands of years, we didn't know who we were. We're finally waking up, and now they know the prophecy as well, and so they're trying to sabotage what can you tell me? And also you mentioned something about us not having a lot of time. I'm really discouraged right now, just thinking about the big picture, and I want so much for our people to wake up and to thwart these plans. What can you tell me that will kind of help me to be a little bit more joyful about this whole situation?
Well, what I can tell you is that Yah's prophecies are always, his words are always yea and amen. So when he says something is going to happen, it's going to happen. The scary part is we have a role to play in it. Okay. I think when I say I think sometimes we might miss it, I'm not saying it vainly. I'm saying it based on the patterns that we see in the text of the Torah, that Israel has always repeated a cycle. And that cycle has to be broken. If we don't get to know these cycles and break them, and like we did on the Passover, we have to relive certain things and then change the outcome, change the end narrative. We have to redeem the past. What is scary now is that we have a bunch of our brothers, Eves or Hebrew Israelites, who want to have nothing to do with their brothers on the continent. We have a lot of people even say that they're not African, they're not this, they're not that, and they're condemning the whole people as Hamites. And there's a lot of bitterness. There are a lot of wounds that need to be healed. And the goal, or the goal is that we have to work as one. We have to. See, the prophecy is not, if we say, okay, let's go with the trend of thought from those who say we're not African, we're Judah, let's go with the trend of thought and just let them be. We repeat the same cycle. It's not going to go anywhere. But the moment we recognize, yes, there were some things done in the past that we cannot write home about. We did ill to our own people. Can we reconcile? Can we come together and say, you know what, this is what happened. This is our forefathers, this is what our ancestors did. Can we put that behind us and then work for a greater cause? What is that greater cause? To unite as a nation, to unite as one people. That is when we have more power. I think that is going to work, but it's only going to work if we have people, we call them people with a message. People with a message of let's unite, unity. And then if we can change our focus, we have proven who we are. We don't need to prove it to anybody anymore. How long? Sometimes I see these videos on YouTube, and sometimes they're 10 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, saying that we are these people. Can we move and grow from that place? The debates and all these things, they're not needed any longer. What is the next step in this process? What is the next step? Now I am Hebrew, so what? What is the next step? If we don't know where to go after our so-called waking up, then it's just fashion, wearing zizit. It's just ritual, keeping the Shabbat. How does that go into building this nation together and then doing our part for these prophecies to come to pass? That is why people like Ron Shields, these people come. They're very key to the community. People who have set themselves apart to study and edify the people and say, listen, this is our Torah, this is our culture, this is our book. Can we learn the book how it's supposed to be learned? Can we take the principles, the concepts that our patriarchs lived by so that we can apply them? That is why these stories are told. So I always tell people, yes, I'm Hebrew. Now, after knowing you're Hebrew, the next step is not keeping the commandments. Why? You don't understand them. I'm Hebrew. Now, okay, let's come to our constitution. Where's the constitution? The Torah. Now let's start learning it. What does it mean to do this? What does it mean to do this? Oh, okay, understand this. So now you're performing the mitzvot with meaning. That is what Yah is looking for, not just wearing tzitzit. Why should I wear tzitzit? To remember Yah's commandments. What are these commandments? How do they apply today? What do they mean? When Moshe said this, what was the meaning behind it? How did they look at it? So it's like a living Torah with depth and with understanding. Because we have to come to Torah for these prophecies to come to pass. It says, if you don't keep my Torah. So we have to come back to Torah in its purest form. So we're not studying it for debates, to win arguments. We're studying it so that we can live by. And then that's when we start. See, people focus on the land. The land is not as important as the Torah. There's a reason why the Torah was not given in the land of Canaan. It was given in the desert. So it binds anywhere that you are. It's not just the land. It's given in the desert in isolation to a people. You see, it's backwards. Usually to start a nation, you go and find a piece of land. And then you take the people there and they give them the constitution. No, the constitution came before the land was given. So it's the constitution, which is the Torah, is the most important. So when we did not keep it, it says, the land will vomit you out. Remember, we took the land. We inherited the land. Some people owned it and we inherited it. And just as the people that owned it, we kicked them out, Yah says, you do the same thing, you out of here. And then he sends the Nebuchadnezzar and the rest to kick us out because we did not keep his Torah. So after I know I'm Hebrew Israelite, the next step is to know this Torah back and front. And then we start living by them, understanding the laws and the concepts in there. And what makes me smile is that we are going back to these traditions, these customs. And we're keeping these things. Now, when there's a Passover, it's amazing how many people, even they fly from wherever they are to go home. We have not had this in the past. People were frowning against these acts. Even people who live just next door will not go. They'll rather go to church to pray because they thought it was idol worship. But now when you see the people rushing home, flying because it's Homo, it's amazing. So that is one thing to look out for. That is one thing to make you smile. Yes, they're going in there trying to convert. But I think the force of people coming back saying that we want to keep our culture is overwhelming. And what they're attempting will not work. There will be a lot of work to be done in certain places like Nigeria. It's a lot of work that has to be done there. But then again, I wouldn't comment on Nigeria. I won't comment on it because I'll say certain things that will break people's heart. And I don't want to. So, yes. So I think that should make you happy that regardless, Yah's word is going to come into fruition. But we still have a part to play. Still do.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I know I have so much to learn, and I'm trying very hard to teach my son, but there's still so much that I don't know. All those laws. I have one in particular about the laws of, like the kinds of fabrics we're allowed to clothe ourselves with. Is that, do we conform to that, or I don't know. Like,
yes.
Is that extreme, or?
Yes, don't worry about those yet. When we get there, I would explain all of them. It would all make sense. It's very simple. It's just how it's been explained. It's very simple.
Okay.
Yes, very simple. You're welcome. Okay, so we take one more question, and then we can call it. I chose to stay longer than usual. Well, I think we usually stay around this time, just for our YouTube viewers to interact with us some more. So now our viewers on YouTube, we do this every weekend, every Shabbat. We have lectures. Our goal is to cover the entire Torah. We started last year in November, and we're just in Genesis. We just finished Genesis 10 and 11. We started 11 today. So we take our time. We explain the text. We stick very close to the ancient text, the interpretation of it coming from the Hebraic perspective. So if you want to join us, we usually don't broadcast it over YouTube. We did it today. So if you want to join us, just head over to our website and then look around, and then try to join us. Okay. Awesome. One more question, and then we can. And as usual, I'm going to post the class online, and I'll send out an email out so you can get copies of it. Okay. One more question, and then we can call it a day. One more question. So, like I always tell you, I don't know everything. What I know, I would share. What I don't know, I would find out. I would recommend somebody that might be able to answer your question, or I would find out and then come and tell it to you. So, no question is.
Rabbi, I actually will ask a question on behalf of the class. The question of telling time with the moon or observing moon days, is that moon worship or is it something that we do? I'm trying my best to answer, but I don't want to steer anybody wrong.
Yes, so the moon is actually a very key symbol in ancient Hebraic thought. Example, when you're doing the naming ceremony, the 8-day circumcision, we do it early in the morning, very early. At dawn, you put a container on top of the roof or anywhere that you can gather the dew in the morning. So the dew that falls, you want to gather some of that, and that is what is used for the blessing of the child. The reason that is done goes all the way back to the book of Genesis, where we are told that there was a mist that came from underneath the earth to water the entire surface of the earth. And then Yah took from that surface to create man. So we are kind of doing the same act that dates all the way back to the beginning. So we take that same dew and then we bless the child with on the 8th day. But before you do that, you take the child and then you raise the child up, and you show the child to the moon. What you're doing is not worshiping the moon, but you know the moon waxes and wanes. Every 15 days, I think you have full moon. I forgot the concept there. But the idea is that life changes. Life is not the sun that is constant. The moon changes its shapes. So this child that Yah has given us is going to go through certain phases. But we know that whatever the phase is, at the end of the day, like Israel, we're going to have a full moon. So we know that it's a sign of saying that we know that Yahweh is always going to be there for us. When we show the child to the moon, we're saying this is like a moon. The child is like a moon. He's going to wax and he's going to wane. He's going to change in sizes. He's going to grow. He's going to go through difficulties and challenges. But we know, just like Israel, we're going to come out whole. We're going to come out as a full moon. That is why we show the moon. We tell the time by the moon also. not only the moon, we use the plants, we use the stars, we use nature to also tell time. So I don't know whether I answered your questions. I hope I did, Madam Juliet.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I was asking on behalf of, in the class, somebody had posted that question.
Okay. Right.
YouTube seems to be having their own conversation, so that's that. Nothing specific that I know that you can answer here. That's not going to take us till like 8 p.m.
Okay, awesome. So I just comment on the last picture that I have on the screen. What the guy has, sometimes or most of the time we use hyssop. Hyssop is a very powerful plant. And usually during the Passover, you dip the hyssop into the blood of the animal and then you paint it on your doorpost. Research the plant or the topic of hyssop. Hyssop is a very powerful plant. You can use it for protection. It protects. It protects. So when you see people go to war, you see them with the hyssop plant. When they're doing baptism, they usually put, if it's in a pool, or sometimes if you don't have a pool and you're using a basin of water, they put the hyssops in there, and then they bathe with it as a mikvah. So awesome. I want to thank everybody for taking time to spend your Shabbat with us. Those on YouTube, thank you for your time. The 63 viewers now. Purge me with hyssop. Thank you, sir. Yes, purge me with hyssop. That's what they're doing here. Yes, purge me with hyssop. And so yes, that's what's going on here. I wanted to show one last thing. And during the Passover, you're told that you're supposed to have your staff in your hands. They were migrating with their staffs. I don't know whether these no, they're carrying the stools. I wanted to show you a picture. There you go. So they're enacting the Passover when we left Egypt, and they have the staff in their hands. This is the Hobachocho. So they enact it every year. Every year we do it so we do not forget. So we do not forget the history. Awesome. 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 So may Yah bless all of you. May he keep you. May he shine his face upon you. May he give you shalom, peace. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat, and I'll make the class available. You should see an email go out very shortly.
Hello. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
השלמה בביאס המשיח אני מאמין ואף על פי שיתמהמה עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא ואף על פי שיתמהמה עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא אני מאמין אמונה שלמה בביאס המשיח אני מאמין